Lesson 1. There is a frequency inside your brain that was fully alive when you were a child. A frequency that made learning feel effortless, that made creativity pour out of you without trying, that made ideas and answers appear inside your mind as if they were being placed there by something far greater than you. Scientists at some of the most respected research institutions in the world have measured this frequency. They call it the gamma wave, the brainwave associated with genius. The brainwave connected to deep intuition, to effortless clarity, to what some researchers have quietly described as the flow state, that rare condition where everything you touch seems to align, where every decision you make seems to land exactly where it needs to, and where life itself seems to move with a current instead of against one. When you were young, this frequency was fully active inside you. You could feel it, even though you had no name for it. You remember what it was like. Learning came naturally. Solutions appeared before you finished asking the question. There was a brightness in you that adults noticed, that teachers commented on, that made people say things like, "That child is different. That child has something special." Then something happened. Slowly, invisibly. Year after year, the modern world, the system you were raised inside, began turning that frequency down. Not in a single moment. Gradually, like a dimmer switch being rotated so gently, you never noticed the room getting darker, until one day you looked around and realized the light was almost gone. And here is what no one has ever connected for you before. That frequency, the one that was quietly turned down inside your brain, is directly linked to provision, the same brainwave that governs your intuition, your creativity, your ability to see what others miss, also governs your capacity to recognize and receive financial opportunity. When that frequency is dormant, money feels like a war you can never win. When it is active, provision flows toward you the way water flows downhill, without force, without begging, without exhaustion. You have been fighting a financial battle with a critical weapon switched off inside your own mind, and you did not even know it was missing. This message is about turning it back on, and what I will reveal by the end will explain every season of financial lack you have ever walked through. But before I show you the science behind this, before I reveal exactly what was taken from you and how to reclaim it, I need to speak directly to the weight you are carrying right now, because I know where you are. And I refuse to rush past your pain to get to the promise. You have been rushed past enough. I know about the math you do when no one is watching, not the kind of math they taught you in school, the kind where you subtract what you owe from what you have, and the number that remains is a silence heavier than any word you could say out loud. I know about the tightness that grips your chest when your phone rings and you wonder if it is another bill, another due date, another reminder that the gap between where you are and where you need to be is growing wider by the day. I know about the rehearsed answers you carry everywhere, ready for when someone asks how you are doing, because the truth would be too heavy to hand to another person, and you have decided it is safer to carry it alone. You did not stumble onto this message by accident. You were not scrolling mindlessly when this appeared. Something, someone, a force that sees you clearly, even when you feel completely invisible to the world, guided you to this exact moment on this exact day. And what I am about to walk you through is going to do 3 things for you. First, I am going to show you exactly why provision has been delayed in your life. And I promise you, it is not the reason you have been telling yourself. It is not punishment. It is not karma. It is not because you are cursed or forgotten or undeserving. The real reason will completely rewrite the way you understand every financial struggle you have ever faced. Second, I am going to give you a specific tool, a framework I call the Overflow Frequency Protocol. It will change the way provision reaches you. not in theory, in daily, practical reality, starting the very day you begin applying it. And third, before this message ends, I am going to speak an activation over your life that is not a regular prayer. It is a commissioning, an activation ceremony designed to seal the shift we are about to walk through, together into your spirit in a way that stays with you long after these words end. But I need you to stay with me. Every single word from this point forward was placed in a specific order for a specific reason. What I reveal at the end will not land the way it is meant to land if you skip ahead. Trust the process. Trust the sequence. Trust the voice that brought you here tonight. Now, I want you to hold a picture in your mind as we begin this journey. Think of provision as a river. A river does not stop flowing because you are unworthy. A river does not skip your house because you made a mistake 10 years ago. A river does not judge. It does not evaluate your past. It does not wait for you to be perfect before it moves. A river flows because it is the nature of a river to flow. That is what it was designed to do. And when provision has not reached you, it does not mean the river dried up. It does not mean the source ran out. It means something redirected it. Something sent the water around your life instead of through it. This entire message is about finding that redirect, naming it, understanding exactly where it came from, and removing it so the water, the provision that has always been flowing, can finally reach the place it was always meant to go. If what I just described sounds like your life, if you know what it means to carry financial weight in silence, if you know what it feels like to smile through another day while the numbers refuse to cooperate, if you have been faithful in the drought and you have been quietly wondering when the rain would come, then what follows was specifically designed for exactly where you are standing right now. This is not a general broadcast for the masses. This is a word for the chosen one who has been doing the right thing in the dark and receiving no reward for it. If that is you, if something inside your spirit just confirmed what I said, I want you to do something right now. Down in the comments, type the words, "I am here." Not for me, for you. Let those 3 words be your declaration that you showed up, that you did not scroll past, that you answered the call that brought you to this moment tonight. Now, let me take you into the first truth, and I want to prepare you. This one is going to hurt before it heals, but the healing would not be real if we skipped the hurt. So stay with me. I want you to picture something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself about whether you have lived this exact moment. It is late, the kind of late where the world has gone quiet and your thoughts have become the loudest thing in the room. Maybe it is 11 at night. Maybe it is closer to 2 in the morning. Everyone else is asleep. Or maybe you live alone, and the silence has become the only companion that does not ask questions. You are sitting somewhere. A kitchen table with papers you have looked at so many times the edges are starting to curl. The edge of your bed with the blanket pulled up, but sleep nowhere near arriving. Maybe you are in your car in the driveway because you needed somewhere to sit where no one could see your face. Your phone is in your hand, not scrolling through feeds, not reading messages, calculating. The calculator app is open and you are doing the math one more time. The same math you did yesterday, the same math you did last week, rearranging the same numbers as if they might cooperate this time, as if moving one payment to the back of the line might create enough space for everything else to fit. The rent, or the mortgage, due in 6 days. The electric bill, already past due by 12 days and the grace period is closing. Groceries. You have been stretching what is in the refrigerator for 3 days, and you know you cannot stretch it much further. The minimum payment on the credit card, the card that was supposed to be for emergencies only. But at some point everything became an emergency. And now the balance looks like a number that belongs to someone else's life, not yours. The insurance, the phone bill, the prescription you have been putting off because the copay alone would throw off the math. And when the calculation is done, when the total stares back at you from that small screen, you do not cry. You do not scream. You do not pick up the phone and call someone. You just sit there, staring at nothing, feeling everything. And the thought that comes is not dramatic. It is not a breakdown. It is quiet. It is the kind of thought that does not shout. It settles into your chest like a stone dropped into still water, and it stays there for weeks, sometimes months, pressing down on everything you do. The thought is this: how did I get here? I did everything I was supposed to do. I worked, I prayed, I gave when I barely had enough to give. I tithed when the math said I could not afford to. I showed up when it would have been easier to disappear. I held on when letting go would have been a relief. And this is where it all led. That moment, that exact moment in the dark with the calculator and the silence. I need you to know something about it that might sound impossible right now. It was not random, and it was not failure, and it was not evidence that you have been forgotten by the source of all provision. That night, that calculation, that stone in your chest, it was formation, the deepest, most deliberate kind of formation. And by the time this message is complete, you will understand exactly what that means and exactly why it had to happen the way it did. But I am not going to rush past this moment to get to the explanation. You have had enough people rush past your pain, enough sermons that skipped the struggle to get to the shout, enough messages that told you to praise through it before they ever acknowledged what IT actually was. So, let me stay here with you for a moment. Let me name what you have been carrying, out loud, specifically, because no one has done that for you, and you deserve to hear your own weight spoken back to you by someone who is not afraid of it. You have been carrying the weight of bills you have reorganized so many times. You have memorized every due date, every minimum payment, every late fee like a prayer you never chose to learn but somehow know by heart. You can recite them faster than scripture. And that fact alone makes you feel like something is wrong with you, when the truth is, you are simply drowning in a system that was never designed for someone waiting on divine timing. You have been carrying the weight of conversations you avoid because you are tired of being the person who always has to say, "I cannot afford that." The dinner invitation you declined, the trip you could not join, the birthday outing where you said you were busy, when the truth is you could not afford to be there. And the shame of admitting it felt heavier than the loneliness of staying home. You have been carrying the weight of shopping carts you filled with things your family needed, and then emptied one item at a time, standing in the aisle doing math again, deciding what could wait another week, putting back the thing your child wanted because the thing they needed took priority, and telling yourself, this is temporary. It will not always be like this. While a quiet voice in the back of your mind whispered, what if it will? You have been carrying the weight of gifts you could not give. Birthdays that came and went with an apology where a present should have been. Holidays where you smiled harder than anyone at the table because the shame of not being able to provide the way you wanted to was screaming inside your chest, and the only way to silence it was to smile wider and hope no one noticed your eyes. You have been carrying the weight of watching other people receive, scrolling past announcements of promotions, new homes, vacations, milestones, all from people who do not seem to try half as hard as you do, and wondering what secret formula they discovered that you somehow missed. Not with bitterness, with genuine gut-level confusion, because it does not make sense. The math of effort and reward does not balance, and you are too honest to pretend it does. And here is the part that cuts the deepest. the weight beneath all the other weights. You have been carrying all of this in silence, not because you are too proud to ask for help, because you are protecting the people around you from knowing how heavy it really is. Your mother does not know. Your closest friend has a version of the truth, but not the full picture. The people who see you every day have no idea that the person standing in front of them is doing invisible math constantly, silently recalculating, always adjusting, always finding a way to make nothing look like something. You smile, you show up, you keep going. And at night, when the world falls asleep, you sit with that calculator one more time. I see that, all of it, the weight, the silence, the math, the pretending, the exhaustion that has nothing to do with your body and everything to do with your spirit, running on fumes for so long you have forgotten what full feels like. And I need you to hear what I am about to say, as if it is being spoken directly into the center of your chest, into the place where that stone has been sitting. The weight is real. The struggle is real. The exhaustion is real. I am not here to minimize any of it or tell you to think positive or remind you that other people have it worse. I know that already, and so do you. That has never helped. But the reason behind the weight, the story you have been telling yourself about why you are in this position, that reason is not what you think. You have been telling yourself a lie so many times it started sounding like the truth. The lie says, you are here because you are not smart enough, not strategic enough, not connected enough, not blessed enough. The lie says, provision flows easily to other people because they figured out something you missed, because they were born with advantages you were not given, because they made a right turn somewhere that you missed. That story, that quiet, convincing, constant story, it is a lie, every word of it. And over the course of this message, I am going to dismantle it piece by piece and replace it with the truth, a truth so specific, so grounded, so supported by both ancient wisdom and modern science that by the time you hear it, you will wonder how you ever believed the lie in the first place. But first, notice something happening in your body right now. As I have been speaking, something shifted. You may not have been paying attention to it. Pay attention now. Notice how your chest feels different than it did 10 minutes ago. There is either a tightness that was not there before or a loosening, as if something that was gripped is beginning to release. Notice how your breathing changed when I described the calculator and the silence and the gifts you could not give. It got shallower. Your body recognized those moments before your mind did. And notice how somewhere deep inside, a door cracked open, a door to a room you normally keep sealed. The room where you store the real weight, the unfiltered version, the truth about what this season has actually cost you. That response is not weakness. That opening is not a sign you are falling apart. It is recognition. Your spirit is confirming what I said. This message is not close to your experience. It is your experience. And that confirmation, that resonance you feel right now in your body, is the first indicator that something is about to change. Now, here is something I need you to hold in your mind. There is a specific reason why this kind of suffering, financial drought, was the one assigned to your season. Not heartbreak alone, though that may have been part of it. Not physical illness, though your body has felt the strain. The primary weight you were given to carry was financial, and there is a strategic, intentional, deeply deliberate reason for that. It has everything to do with who you are about to become and what you are about to carry in the next season. I will explain that fully before this message is over. Hold that question. For now, let me tell you what was actually happening during your drought. What was being built while you thought you were being broken? You have been in what I call the formation season. And I know that phrase might sound like a gentle way to dress up suffering. a way to make pain more palatable. It is not. It is the most precise, most honest description I can give for what has been happening beneath the surface of your life while you were sitting in the dark with that calculator. A formation season is not a season of absence. It is a season of construction. But the construction is happening in a location you cannot access with your eyes. It is not building your bank account. Not yet. It is building you. It is reinforcing the foundation of who you are at the deepest level, so that when provision arrives, and it will arrive, it lands on something solid instead of something that crumbles under the weight. And there is a reason the building had to come first. Think about it honestly. If someone had handed you $1 million 5 years ago, before the drought, before the nights of silence, before the formation, what would have happened? And I do not want the answer that sounds good. I want the honest one. Who were you 5 years ago? What were your blind spots? Who were you trusting that you should not have been trusting? What spending patterns were running in your life that you had not yet addressed? What emotional wounds were still making financial decisions on your behalf? If provision had arrived before the formation, the river would have flooded a house that was not ready for water. And the flood would have caused more damage than the drought ever did. The drought was not punishment. The drought was protection. Something in the divine intelligence of your journey recognized that you were being prepared for a level of provision that would overwhelm the version of you that existed before the hard season. And so, instead of pouring the river into a vessel that would crack under the pressure, the maker of the vessel decided to rebuild you first, to strengthen the walls, to seal the cracks, to expand the capacity. Let me show you specifically what was being constructed while you thought everything was falling apart. The first thing the drought built was capacity. You learned how to carry nothing and still keep walking. Do you understand how extraordinary that is? Most people collapse when the money runs out. Their identity dissolves. Their faith evaporates. Their relationships fracture. They stop showing up. They retreat into bitterness or blame or paralysis. But you did not. You kept going. You kept working. You kept giving. Sometimes when you had almost nothing left to give. You kept praying when you had every reason to stop. You kept showing up when quitting was the easier, more logical option. That ability, the ability to function under extreme pressure without disintegrating, that is not common. That is not something everyone has. That is the signature, the specific marking of someone being prepared to carry something massive. Not the weight of poverty, the weight of abundance, because abundance is heavy. Real wealth is heavy. Provision at the scale that is being prepared for your life requires a carrier who does not break when the pressure increases. And the only way to develop that kind of capacity is to practice carrying weight before the weight arrives. That is what the drought was. Practice, rehearsal, training for a level of responsibility you could not have handled before. The second thing the drought built was discernment. And this one is critical because it is the thing that will protect your provision after it arrives. Scarcity sharpens what abundance dulls. When you have very little, you learn very quickly who around you is genuine and who is performing. You learn which relationships are built on real love and which are built on proximity to what you can provide. You learn which voices in your life speak with wisdom and which speak from their own agenda, their own need, their own projection. During the drought, people showed you who they were. Some stayed, most did not. Some offered help. Many disappeared. And the ones who stayed, the ones who loved you when you had nothing to offer in return, those are the relationships that are going to carry into the next season. The drought was a filter. It was sorting your circle without you having to do the sorting. And the discernment you developed, the ability to read a room, to feel when someone is genuine, to recognize when an opportunity is real versus when it is a trap dressed up as a blessing. That discernment was built in the drought. You could not have learned it in comfort. You could not have developed it in abundance. It required lack. It required the vulnerability of having nothing so you could see, with brutal clarity, who was willing to be there when there was nothing in it for them. And the third thing the drought built, the one that matters most, the one that most people never understand even after the provision arrives, is this. The drought separated your identity from your income. Let me say that one more time, because it is the foundation everything else rests on. The drought forced you to discover who you are without money. And that is the most powerful kind of self-knowledge a person can possess. You know who you are when the account is empty. You know what you value when you cannot buy anything. You know what matters when every luxury is stripped away and all that remains is the raw, undecorated truth of your character. And what remained, what was left standing when everything was taken, that is who you actually are. That knowledge is armor for the next season. Because when provision arrives, and it will arrive with a force you are not yet prepared to imagine, you will not confuse your net worth with your self-worth. You will not worship the gift because you have already learned to worship the giver. You will not lose your identity inside abundance because the drought showed you with absolute certainty who you are when abundance is nowhere to be found. Capacity, discernment, identity. Those three things were being constructed inside you during every single night you sat with that calculator, not by accident, not randomly, not carelessly, deliberately, strategically, by a hand that already knew what the next chapter of your life would require and was building you to match it. Now, if that was all I had to tell you, if the only revelation in this message was that your drought was not punishment, but formation, that it was building capacity and discernment and identity for the season of provision that is about to begin, that alone would be enough to change how you carry tomorrow morning. That alone would be worth every minute you have spent listening. But chosen one, this is only the beginning. This is only the first layer of what I need to show you. And what comes next is the part that rewrites the entire story. There is a man in the ancient texts whose story reads like a blueprint for everything you have been living through. His name is Joseph, and before I tell you what happened to him, I need you to understand why his story matters to you right now, tonight, in the middle of your financial drought. Because his story is not just a lesson from the past, it is a mirror for your present. And the way his story ended is a prophecy for what is about to happen in your life. Joseph was born with something the people around him could see but could not understand. He had a brightness in him, a clarity, a way of seeing things that others could not see. When he was young, he had visions, not vague feelings, specific, detailed visions of a future where he would be elevated to a position of extraordinary authority and provision. Visions where the very people who doubted him would one day come to him in need, and he would be the one with the resources to save them. And what happened next is the part that will feel like someone opened your journal and read it back to you. The people closest to him, his own family, his own brothers, the ones who should have celebrated his calling, turned on him. They did not simply reject his vision. They threw him into a pit, a literal hole in the ground, and then they sold him. They traded his life for money and told his father he was dead. Think about that for a moment. The person who was destined for the greatest provision, the person who was built to manage abundance at a scale that would save an entire nation from famine, that person started his journey at the bottom of a pit, not at a conference, not at a networking event, not in a classroom where someone taught him the principles of wealth creation. In a pit, betrayed, abandoned, stripped of everything he had, his coat, his dignity, his family, his freedom, all taken in a single day. And then it got worse, because the pit was not the bottom. Joseph was sold into the house of a man named Potiphar, a wealthy, powerful man who recognized Joseph's ability and put him in charge of everything he owned. And for the first time in what must have felt like forever, things were starting to look up. Joseph was managing resources. He was learning how wealth operates at scale. He was gaining experience that he could not have gained in his father's house as a shepherd's son. And just when the light was beginning to return, just when the math was starting to add up, he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison. Not for anything he did wrong, for doing the right thing. He refused to compromise his integrity, and the reward for his integrity was a prison cell. Now I want you to hold that detail, because if you have ever done the right thing and been punished for it, if you have ever stayed honest when dishonesty would have been easier, if you have ever kept your integrity intact and watched it cost you financially, this is your story. Joseph did everything right, and it made things worse. At least, that is what it looked like from the inside. But here is what I need you to see. Something most people miss when they read Joseph's story. Something that changes everything. Every single station in Joseph's suffering was a classroom. In Potiphar's house, Joseph learned how to manage wealth he did not own. He learned resource allocation. He learned how to steward someone else's abundance with the same diligence he would give his own. That skill, the ability to manage massive resources faithfully, was the exact skill he would need when he was eventually placed in charge of the grain supply for the most powerful nation on earth. In prison, Joseph learned how to read people. He interpreted dreams for two fellow prisoners. One was restored to his position, the other was not. Joseph learned that not every person you help will remember you. Not every investment of your energy will produce a return, and the ability to keep giving, keep serving, keep showing up even when people forget you, even when the help you offer is met with silence. That ability was being forged in the prison. 13 years. That is how long Joseph spent between the pit and the palace. 13 years of what looked like failure, looked like delay, looked like divine forgetfulness. But not a single day of those 13 years was wasted. Every day was a course. Every hardship was a module. Every betrayal was a lesson he would need for the level of provision that was waiting for him at the end. And when the day finally came, when Joseph was pulled out of prison and brought before the most powerful ruler in the known world, he was ready. Not because the prison had been easy, because the prison had been the final exam, and he passed it. Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. One day he was in chains. The next he was wearing the signet ring of the king, riding in the second chariot of the most powerful empire on earth, with authority over the grain supply that would feed millions of people during a famine that lasted 7 years. And here is the detail that speaks directly into your financial drought tonight. When the famine came, the famine that Joseph had seen in his vision years earlier, the very brothers who threw him into the pit, the ones who sold him for silver, came to him for provision. They came begging for grain. They came hungry. They came desperate. And Joseph, the one who had been in the pit, the one who had been in the prison, the one who had carried nothing for 13 years, was now the one holding everything. He did not give them just enough to survive. He gave them more than they asked for. He gave them land. He gave them livestock. He gave them a future. That is the pattern. And it is your pattern. The pit was not a detour. The prison was not a mistake. The 13 years were not wasted. Every single day of Joseph's drought was building the exact skills, the exact discernment, the exact capacity he would need to manage the flood of provision that was coming. And chosen one, you are Joseph, not in metaphor, in blueprint. The pit you have been in whether it was job loss, business failure, betrayal by someone you trusted with your finances, a season of working and giving and praying with nothing to show for it. That pit was your Potiphar's house. That is where you learned how to manage what little you had with excellence. And the prison, the season that felt like punishment for doing the right thing, that was your final exam. The one that proved you could keep your integrity when it cost you everything. You are at the end of your 13 years. And the palace is not a metaphor for someday. The palace is the season that begins when this drought ends. And the drought is ending. But before I move forward, there is a word I need to show you. A word from the original Hebrew text that is going to change how you understand everything I just said. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, there is a line that millions of people have read, but almost nobody has understood at the depth it was written. The line reads like this: I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Most people hear the word restore, and they think it means to give back what was taken, to return things to the way they were before, to make it even. That is what the English translation suggests. But that is not what the original word means. Not even close. The original Hebrew word is shalam. And shalam does not mean to give back equal. Shalam is a legal term, a courtroom term. It means to overpay, to compensate with excess. In the ancient Hebrew legal code, when a thief was caught stealing, the thief was not required to return only what was taken. The thief was required to pay back double, sometimes 4 times what was stolen. That is shalam, restoration with interest, payback that exceeds the loss. When the divine promises to restore, the word being used is not give back. The word being used is overpay. What was taken from you will not be returned equal. It will be returned multiplied. The years the locust consumed, the finances the drought devoured, the opportunities that slipped through your hands during the hard season, none of it will come back at face value. It comes back with interest. And the interest rate is set by the one who makes the promise, not by the economy, not by your employer, not by the housing market or the stock exchange. The interest rate on your restoration is set by the same hand that built you during the drought. And that hand has never underpaid anyone. Think about it like this. If a court finds that someone stole $100 from you, the judge does not order them to pay back 100. The judge orders restitution, 500, 1,000. Whatever the judge decides is fair compensation for what you endured during the theft. That is shalam. And the judge in your case is not bound by human economics. So, when I tell you that money is about to flow to you like water, I am not making a motivational statement. I am reading you the verdict, the shalam verdict, the overpayment order. The divine court has ruled in your favor, and the restitution is not going to be modest. It is going to be so excessive that the people around you will struggle to explain it in natural terms. Let me ask you something right now, and I need you to answer this honestly inside your spirit, not out loud, just between you and the one who brought you here. When was the last time you actually believed, not hoped, not wished, not wanted, but genuinely believed from the core of your being that overflow was coming for you? When was the last time you looked at your financial reality and felt a deep, unshakable confidence that this was temporary, that something beyond what you could manufacture with your own effort was on its way? If you cannot remember, that is not a problem. That is a data point. It tells me exactly how long you have been operating under the lie that provision is for other people and survival is for you. And that lie is crumbling tonight, right now, with every word. Now let me show you 2 more lives that mirror yours, 2 more chosen ones whose droughts ended in rivers. There was a woman named Ruth who lost everything in what felt like a single season. Her husband died. Her security vanished overnight. She was left in a foreign land with no income, no family support, no safety net, and a mother-in-law who tried to send her away because there was nothing left to offer. Ruth had every reason to leave, every logical, practical, financial reason to walk away and go back to her own people, where at least she would not starve. But she stayed. Not because staying made sense, because something in her spirit told her that the field she was walking in, even though it looked barren, even though the math said it could not sustain her, that field was about to change owners, and it did. Ruth went from gleaning leftover grain in the corners of a stranger's field, picking up what the harvesters dropped, surviving on scraps, to marrying the owner of the field itself. Not a small field, a vast estate, and not just any owner. A man named Boaz, whose name in the original language means "in him is strength." Ruth's provision did not come through her effort alone. It came through alignment. She was in the right field at the right time with the right posture, and the owner of the field found her. That is a word for you tonight. You have been gleaning. You have been surviving on the edges, picking up whatever scraps the world drops, making do with less than enough, stretching what should not stretch. And you have been faithful doing it. You have not complained to the point of quitting. You have not let bitterness consume you. You have kept going, kept working, kept trusting, even when the field looked empty. The field is about to change owners. The provision that is coming is not more scraps. It is the entire field. And then there was David, a man who spent years tending sheep in a field that nobody visited, doing a job that nobody valued, developing skills that nobody recognized, in a season so invisible that when the prophet came to his father's house to anoint the next king, David's own father forgot to invite him. He was not in the room. He was so overlooked, so dismissed, so invisible that his own family did not consider him a candidate for the blessing. And yet, he was the one. He was always the one. David was anointed king while still smelling like sheep. And then, after the anointing, after the oil was placed on his head, after the divine selection was made public, David did not go to the palace. He went back to the field. He went back to the sheep. He went back to the invisible, unpaid, unrecognized work for years before the crown actually touched his head. That gap. The gap between the anointing and the crowning. The gap between the promise and the manifestation. That gap is where you are living right now. You have already been anointed. The selection has already been made. The divine decision about your provision has already been issued. But you are still in the field, still tending the sheep, still doing the invisible work. And you have been wondering, if the decision was already made, why am I still here? Because the field is the final classroom, and the sheep are the final exam. David learned to fight in that field. He killed a lion. He killed a bear, not in front of an audience, alone, in the dark, with no one watching and no one clapping. And when the giant showed up years later, when the moment of public provision arrived, David was the only one in the entire army who was not afraid, because he had already been trained in silence, in obscurity, in a field that no one else would have chosen. Your hidden years are not the delay. They are the qualification. Now, I want to lay all of this side by side so you can see it as one picture instead of separate stories. What felt like financial punishment was actually financial formation. The drought was building capacity, discernment, and identity inside you that abundance alone could never develop. What felt like being forgotten was actually being favored. Joseph was not forgotten in prison. He was being positioned. Ruth was not abandoned in the field. She was being guided to the right row at the right time. David was not ignored in the pasture. He was being trained for a throne that required skills only the wilderness could teach. What felt like delay was actually development. Every month of your drought, every week of waiting, every night of counting, was adding a layer to the foundation that will hold the weight of what is coming. Not a single day was wasted. Not a single tear was unnoticed. Not a single prayer bounced off the ceiling. They were all recorded. And the shalam, the overpayment, accounts for every single one. What felt like the end of provision was actually the beginning of overflow. The darkest part of the night is not a sign that morning has been cancelled. It is a sign that morning is closer than it has ever been. If your spirit just confirmed everything I said, if something shifted in your chest, if you felt the weight of those words settle into a place that has been empty for too long, then I want you to go to the comments right now and type one word: shalam. Type it as your declaration that what was taken will not be returned equal. It will be returned with interest, with excess, with an overflow that makes the drought look small in comparison. Type shalam. And let that word become the first word of your next financial chapter. Now, I need to take you somewhere deeper, because everything I just showed you, the formation, the capacity building, the Joseph blueprint, the shalam overpayment, all of it is true, every word of it. And for many of you, this truth alone will begin to shift something in how you carry your season. But there is a question that haunts me, and it might be haunting you too. If this truth is real, if the formation is complete, if the shalam has been ordered, then why are some chosen ones still not receiving? Why do some people hear the truth about divine provision, believe it with their whole heart, and still watch the river flow past their door without stopping? The answer to that question is not spiritual. It is not about your faith being too small, or your prayers being too quiet, or your obedience being insufficient. The answer is neurological. It is inside your brain, in a frequency that was turned off so slowly you never felt it disappear. And what I am about to show you in the next part will connect two worlds that have never been connected for you before: the world of the spirit and the world of the mind, the world of divine provision and the world of neuroscience. And when you see where they meet, you will understand, for the first time, not just why provision was delayed, but what specific mechanism has been blocking it, and exactly how to remove it. Stay with me. The river is closer than you think. What I am about to show you is something that very few people in the spiritual community have ever connected. And the reason they have not connected it is because it sits at the intersection of two worlds that most people keep separate: the world of the spirit and the world of the brain, the world of prayer and the world of neuroscience, the world of divine provision and the world of measurable, observable, scientifically documented brain function. Most people live in one world or the other. The spiritual person prays and trusts and waits. The scientific person researches and measures and tests. But almost nobody stands in the middle and asks the most important question of all. What if these two worlds are not separate? What if the brain is not separate from the spirit? What if the brain is the instrument the spirit uses to operate in the physical world, the way a musician uses a piano to turn invisible music into sound that others can hear? Because if that is true, and I'm going to show you why it is, then it means something extraordinary. It means that when your brain is not functioning at the frequency it was designed to operate at, your spirit cannot fully express itself in the material world. Your prayers are real. Your faith is genuine. Your spiritual identity is intact. But the instrument, the brain, the physical mechanism through which provision is recognized, received, and managed in the real world, that instrument has been detuned, and you have been trying to play a symphony on a piano with half the keys missing. Let me take you inside the science for a moment. And I promise you, this is not going to feel like a lecture. This is going to feel like someone finally turned on the lights in a room you have been sitting in your entire life. Your brain operates on electrical frequencies. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every decision you make, every prayer you pray, all of it produces measurable electrical activity in your brain. Scientists have been studying these frequencies for decades using technology called EEG, which measures brain waves in real time. And what they have found is that your brain does not just produce one frequency, it produces several. And each frequency is associated with a completely different state of being. The lowest frequency is called delta. Delta is the brainwave of deep, dreamless sleep. When your brain is in delta, you are unconscious. Your body is healing. Your mind is offline. Above that is theta. Theta is the frequency of deep meditation, of twilight states, of the moments just before you fall asleep or just as you are waking up, when the boundary between the conscious and the unconscious becomes thin and ideas seem to float up from somewhere you cannot name. Then comes alpha. Alpha is calm awareness, relaxation without drowsiness, the state you enter when you are present, breathing easily, not stressed, not asleep, just peacefully alert. Above alpha is beta, and this is where most adults spend the majority of their waking hours. Beta is the frequency of active thinking, of problem solving, of stress management, of to-do lists and deadlines and calculations. Beta is the brainwave of survival mode. It is the frequency your brain locks into when it perceives that the world is demanding something from you, and you need to stay sharp, stay vigilant, stay ready. Beta is useful. It keeps you functioning, but it is also exhausting. And when your brain is stuck in beta for too long, it feels like your mind is a motor that has been running at maximum speed for years without ever being turned off. Now, here is where it gets extraordinary. Above all of these, above delta, above theta, above alpha, above beta, there is one more frequency, the highest measurable brainwave the human brain can produce. Scientists almost did not discover it because it is so rare in adults that they initially thought their equipment was malfunctioning when they detected it. But when they confirmed it was real, when they measured it across multiple studies at some of the most respected research institutions in the world, they gave it a name that tells you everything you need to know about what it does. They called it gamma. Gamma is the super brainwave, the frequency that sits above every other frequency your brain can produce. And when gamma is active, the human brain does things that scientists still cannot fully explain. In gamma states, creativity does not feel like effort, it feels like reception. Ideas do not come from grinding and forcing and pushing your mind harder. They arrive, fully formed, as if they are being downloaded from a source that exists outside of you and placed directly into your awareness. Researchers have called these eureka moments, those flashes of insight where a solution appears in your mind so suddenly and so completely that you cannot trace where it came from. Those moments are gamma events. In gamma states, intuition sharpens to a level that defies logical explanation. People in high gamma activity report knowing things they have no rational basis for knowing, sensing danger before it arrives, feeling drawn to a specific place or person for reasons they cannot articulate, only to discover later that the pull was exactly right. Some researchers have quietly noted that gamma activity looks, from a neurological standpoint, almost identical to what spiritual traditions have described for thousands of years as prophecy, as discernment, as hearing from the divine. In gamma states, pattern recognition accelerates dramatically. The brain begins seeing connections that are invisible in lower frequencies. Opportunities that were always there but went unnoticed suddenly become obvious. Relationships between events that seemed random begin to reveal a hidden order. What most people call coincidence, what the spiritual community calls synchronicity, these are gamma events. They are the brain operating at a frequency high enough to perceive the connections that lower frequencies cannot detect. And here is the part that matters most for what we are discussing tonight. In gamma states, people enter what scientists call the flow state, the condition where time seems to bend, where effort disappears, where everything you do seems to align with a current that carries you forward without resistance. In flow, decisions are not agonized over, they are clear. In flow, the right word comes at the right time. The right opportunity appears at the right moment. The right person calls on the right day. Flow is not magic. It is your brain operating at the frequency it was designed to operate at. And chosen one, here is what the research revealed that changed everything for me. Every child is born with active gamma. When you were a child, gamma was not rare. It was your default. It was the frequency your brain operated in naturally, effortlessly, without any training or meditation or technique. That is why learning felt so easy when you were young. That is why creativity poured out of you without trying. That is why you could spend hours lost in play, in imagination, in building entire worlds inside your mind without fatigue. That was not childhood innocence. That was gamma. Your brain was running on its highest frequency as a baseline, and everything in your life reflected it. Do you remember what it felt like? And I am not asking you to remember a specific event. I am asking you to remember the feeling, the lightness, the way mornings felt wide open instead of heavy, the way problems had solutions that appeared before you finished worrying, the way ideas came to you so fast you could barely keep up with them, the way adults noticed something in you, something bright, something sharp, something they called gifted or special or different, and you did not understand why they were making a fuss, because it was just how your mind worked. That was gamma, and it was fully alive in you. Then something happened that scientists have documented so thoroughly it has its own name. They call it the decline effect. Starting around the age of 7, the systems that surround you, the education system, the social environment, the cultural pressure to conform and sit still and stop daydreaming and focus on what you are told to focus on rather than what your mind naturally gravitates toward. All of these systems begin exerting a downward pressure on gamma activity, not violently, not in a single moment, gradually, like a dimmer switch being turned so slowly that you never notice the room getting darker. By the time you are a teenager, gamma activity has declined significantly. By the time you reach adulthood, most people are operating at a fraction of the gamma output they had as children. The frequency that once governed their thinking, their creativity, their intuition, their ability to see what others could not see, that frequency has been turned down to a whisper, and the person who remains, the adult who looks at their life and wonders why everything feels so heavy, why joy requires so much effort, why ideas that once came freely now feel like pulling teeth, why the world seems to resist them at every turn, that person is not broken. That person is not lacking intelligence or talent or worth. That person is simply operating on the wrong frequency. The piano still works, but half the keys have been silenced. Now here is where this becomes deeply personal, and I need you to listen to what I am about to say with your full attention, because this is the part that explains something about your life that nothing else has ever explained. You are not a normal person. I say that with the utmost respect and the deepest conviction. You are not average. You were not born with average gamma. The very fact that you identify as a chosen one, The very fact that this message resonated with you from the opening words, the very fact that you have always felt, for as long as you can remember, that you were meant for something larger, something deeper, something that the people around you could not see or understand. That feeling is not delusion. It is not wishful thinking. It is not ego. It is gamma. You were born with gamma activity that was higher than the people around you, significantly higher. That is what made you different. That is what adults noticed when you were young. That is what set you apart in ways that felt both like a gift and like a burden, because being different when you are a child is not always comfortable. You learned faster, you felt deeper, you sensed things that other children did not sense. You had intuitions that proved correct so often, it almost frightened you. You saw patterns in the world that your peers walked right past without noticing. Teachers either celebrated you or struggled to contain you because your mind did not operate the way the system was designed to handle. That was your gamma, stronger than average, brighter than typical, more active than the norm, and that is exactly why the decline effect hit you harder than it hit everyone else. Think about it. If a normal person loses some of their gamma activity through the natural suppression of the modern world, they feel a subtle dimming. Things get a little harder. Joy takes a little more effort. Creativity requires a little more push. But because their baseline was average, the decline feels manageable. They adjust, they compensate, they call it growing up. But you did not start at average. You started at extraordinary. Your gamma was not a small flame. It was a bonfire. And when the system began dimming it, the distance between who you were and who you became was not a gentle slope. It was a cliff. That is why your struggle feels different from everyone else's. That is why the weight feels heavier than what the people around you seem to carry. Not because you are weaker, because you lost more. The gap between your original frequency and your current frequency is wider than any normal person's gap. And that gap, that enormous, invisible, unnamed distance between the person you were designed to be and the person the world reduced you to, that is what you have been feeling your entire adult life. Every time you felt like you were meant for more, that was the gap. Every time you looked at your life and thought, this cannot be all there is, that was the gap. Every time you sensed a potential inside you that you could not access, a power that you could feel but could not reach, a version of yourself that existed somewhere just beyond the edge of your awareness, that was gamma, your original frequency, calling to you from behind a wall that the world built without your permission. And the financial struggle, the provision that has not arrived, the river that has been flowing past your life without stopping, it is all connected to this. Because gamma does not just govern creativity and intuition. Gamma governs your capacity to perceive and receive opportunity. And when your gamma is dormant, opportunities that were designed for you pass within inches of your life, and you cannot see them. They are right there. The provision is right there. The river is flowing right past your door. But the part of your brain that was designed to detect it, to recognize it, to reach out and receive it, that part is asleep. You are not unlucky. You are not cursed. You are not being punished by the universe for some mistake you cannot identify. You are a chosen one with extraordinary gamma potential, whose frequency was turned down by a world that did not know what it was doing. And the result is that you have been navigating life, making decisions, trying to build financial stability, trying to receive provision, trying to step into your calling, all while operating at a fraction of the mental capacity you were born with. Imagine trying to find your way through a forest at night with a flashlight that only produces 10% of its full beam. The path is there. The clearing is there. The The way forward exists, but you cannot see it because the light is too dim. That is what dormant gamma does to your financial life. The provision path exists. The opportunities are real. The river is flowing. But your brain is searching for them with 10% of the light it was given. If what I just described landed in your spirit, if something inside you just said yes, that is what I have been feeling, that is the gap I could never name, then before I continue, I want to ask you something. This message has the power to reach another chosen one who is sitting somewhere right now, in the dark, doing that same math, feeling that same gap, wondering what went wrong, and they do not know about any of this. They do not know about the gamma. They do not know about the decline effect. They do not know that the weight they are carrying is not weakness, but withdrawal from a frequency they were born to carry. If you want this message to reach that person, gently press the like button right now, not for me, not for numbers, so that this word can travel beyond this room and find the chosen one who needs it tonight. Let your like be the hand that passes this torch to someone still sitting in the dark. Now, what I have shown you so far is the diagnosis. You understand the formation. You understand the frequency. You understand why you, specifically as a chosen one, feel the loss more deeply than others around you. But understanding the problem has never been enough to solve it. If understanding alone could fix a dormant frequency, you would have fixed it years ago through sheer awareness and willpower. The diagnosis is necessary, but what you need now is the treatment, the specific, practical, measurable treatment that addresses not just the spiritual dimension of your financial drought, but the neurological one as well. And what I am about to show you next is where the river meets the road. This is where everything I have taught you stops being theory and starts becoming something you can use, starting tonight. But I need you to hear the full picture first, because the connection between gamma and provision goes deeper than most people realize. And when you see the full connection, the tool I am about to give you will make perfect sense. Stay with me. We are approaching the moment where the invisible becomes visible. Let me show you the connection that changes everything. I told you that gamma governs creativity, intuition, pattern recognition, and the flow state. All of that is true, but there is one more thing gamma governs that scientists have only recently begun to understand. And it is the piece that connects everything we have discussed tonight into a single, unavoidable conclusion. Gamma governs your capacity to perceive opportunity, not create opportunity, not manufacture it, not hustle your way into it. Perceive it, see it, recognize it when it is standing right in front of you. Let me explain what that means in practical terms, because this is not abstract. This is as real as the bills on your kitchen table. Every single day, opportunities pass through your life. Financial opportunities, career openings, business ideas, investment signals, conversations that contain seeds of provision if you could hear them properly, connections that would lead to doors if you could recognize them in time. These opportunities are not rare. They are constant. They flow through your life the way water flows through a riverbed, continuously, reliably, without pause. But here is the problem. When your brain is stuck in beta, the survival frequency, the stress frequency, the frequency of fight or flight, and calculation and anxiety, your brain literally cannot perceive what gamma would show you. Beta narrows your focus. It locks your attention onto the immediate threat, the next bill, the next deadline, the next crisis, and it blocks your ability to see the wider landscape. In beta, your brain is like a searchlight pointed at one tiny spot on the ground. Everything outside that spot is invisible to you. Gamma is the opposite. Gamma is the floodlight. It illuminates everything. In gamma, your brain processes information from multiple channels simultaneously. You see the whole room instead of one corner. You hear the full conversation instead of one sentence. You perceive the pattern behind the events instead of just the events themselves. And when it comes to provision, this difference is not small. It is the difference between seeing one option and seeing 20, between recognizing one income stream and recognizing 5 that were always there but hidden from your beta-locked awareness, between feeling like opportunities never come your way and suddenly realizing they have been coming all along, but your brain was tuned to the wrong channel to receive the signal. This is why two people can live in the same city, have similar education, similar skills, similar work ethic, and one seems to attract financial blessing effortlessly while the other struggles year after year. It is not about favor. It is not about intelligence. It is about frequency. The one who prospers is operating in gamma, whether they know it or not. They see doors that the other person walks past. They sense timing that the other person misses. They make decisions from a place of clarity that the other person cannot access because their brain is trapped in survival mode. And here is the part that should make you angry. Not bitter, not resentful, strategically angry, the kind of anger that leads to change. Your gamma was not defective. Your gamma was not weak. Your gamma was extraordinary, higher than average. And it was turned down, not by your choice, not because of anything you did wrong, but by a system that benefits from keeping brilliant minds in survival frequency, because a mind stuck in beta is a mind that consumes. It buys solutions to anxiety. It pays for comfort. It spends money trying to fill the gap that only gamma can fill. But a mind in gamma creates. It sees through the noise. It recognizes when it is being manipulated, and a system built on consumption does not benefit from a population of people who can see clearly. I am not telling you this to make you feel like a victim. I am telling you this because you need to understand that the financial drought you have been living in is not a reflection of your worth, your intelligence, your faith, or your effort. It is a reflection of a frequency that was turned down without your consent. And the moment that frequency is turned back up, the river of provision that has been flowing past your life for years will suddenly become visible. And not just visible, navigable, receivable, yours. So the question becomes, how do you turn it back on? And this is where I need to be honest with you about something. There are methods that work, and there are methods that take so long they might as well not work for someone in your situation. Meditation, for example, can increase gamma activity. That is scientifically documented. But here is what no one tells you. The kind of meditation that produces measurable gamma activation requires months, sometimes years, of consistent daily practice. And even then, the results vary wildly depending on the individual. For someone who has been in a financial drought, who is exhausted, who is barely keeping up with the basics of survival, asking them to commit to 2 years of daily meditation before they might begin to see a shift in their brain, frequency is not a realistic solution. It is a beautiful theory. But it does not meet you where you are. Biofeedback therapy is another option. Clinical biofeedback uses real-time monitoring of your brain activity to help you learn how to shift your own frequency consciously. It works. The data supports it. But a single session of biofeedback therapy costs around $300. A full treatment protocol runs into the thousands. And for those who want to do it at home, the equipment starts at around $7,000. For someone sitting in the dark doing math with a calculator, that is not a solution. That is another door with a price tag they cannot reach. So where does that leave you? Knowing that your gamma is dormant, knowing that it is the key to unlocking the provision that has been flowing past your life, knowing that the river is right there, but the traditional methods of reactivating it are either too slow or too expensive for someone in your season. This is where I need to tell you about something that I did not expect to find when I started researching this. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake, a man who has spent 34 years studying the human brain, asked a question that no one else was asking. He asked, what if there was a way to activate gamma directly? Not through years of meditation, not through thousands of dollars of equipment, but through a specific audio technology that speaks directly to the brain in its own language, the language of frequency, and guides it into gamma activation, the way a tuning fork causes a nearby string to vibrate at the same pitch. The technology is called brain entrainment, and it is not new. The science behind it has been studied at research institutions including Princeton, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, and Columbia University. The principle is simple. When the brain is exposed to a precisely calibrated audio signal, it begins to synchronize with that signal, not metaphorically, physically, measurably. The neurons in your brain literally adjust their firing rate to match the external frequency. It is called the frequency following response, and it is one of the most well-documented phenomena in neuroscience. Dr. Lake spent years refining this technology, not to create background noise, not to produce a meditation soundtrack, to create a precise 7-minute audio track that uses brain entrainment to guide the brain directly into gamma activation. 7 minutes. That is all it takes. You put on a pair of headphones, you sit in a quiet place, and you listen. No meditation required, no mantras, no visualization, no effort. The audio does the work because it is speaking a language your brain already understands, but has not heard clearly in years. And I need to tell you what I am not saying right now. I am not saying this is magic. I am not saying that you listen to a 7-minute track and money falls from the sky. That is not what this is. What this is a recalibration. A way to wake up the part of your brain that was designed to perceive and receive provision, but has been dormant since the modern world turned it down. What happens after the recalibration? The opportunities you begin to notice, the clarity that returns to your decision-making, the intuitive nudges that start guiding you toward the right people and the right moments. That is not the audio doing something supernatural. That is your brain doing what it was always designed to do, operating at the frequency it was built for. 18,366 people have already used this track, and the stories that have come back are not stories of instant miracles. They are stories of people waking up, seeing clearly for the first time in years, noticing things they had been walking past for months, making decisions with a confidence they had not felt since childhood. One by one, the fog lifting, the river becoming visible, the provision that was always there finally reaching hands that could recognize it. Let me tell you about one of them. A man, 51 years old. He had been unemployed for nearly 2 years, not because he was lazy, not because he lacked skill, because something had changed in him over the years, and he could not name what it was. He described his mind as foggy. He said he would walk into job interviews and the words would not come. The sharpness he used to carry, the clarity that once made him excellent at what he did, it was gone. He had tried everything. Career coaching, resume overhauls, networking events that left him more exhausted than inspired. 11 days after he began using this 7-minute audio, he received a job offer. Not just any offer, a position better than the one he had lost, at a company he had never applied to. They contacted HIM, and when I asked him what he thought changed, he did not talk about the job. He did not talk about the resume. He pointed to his head and said, I did not change anything out there. I changed something in here. The fog lifted. And when the fog lifted, I could see the doors that were already open. That is shalam. That is the overpayment. Not just getting back what was taken, getting back more. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You have tried things before. Sound healing, meditation apps, programs that promised to rewire your brain, and none of them delivered what they promised. So why would this be any different? Here is why. Those methods work on a different mechanism. Meditation asks your brain to change itself through discipline. Sound healing uses general frequencies that may or may not target gamma specifically. Apps give you tools but leave the heavy lifting to you. Brain entrainment is a different category entirely. It does not ask your brain to do anything. It does the work for you. The audio signal enters through your ears. Your neurons detect the frequency pattern and they synchronize. That is not a belief. That is physics. It is measurable. It has been replicated in laboratory settings. And it happens whether you believe in it or not, because your brain responds to frequency the same way your skin responds to sunlight. It is automatic. Here is what this looks like practically. Dr. Lake took this technology and compressed it into a single audio track, 7 minutes long, designed to be listened to once a day with headphones. The original retail price is $49, which, when you compare it to $300 per biofeedback session or $7,000 for home equipment, is already a fraction of what traditional gamma activation costs. But Dr. Lake made a decision that I want you to hear. He decided that the people who need this most, the ones sitting in financial drought, the ones doing the math in the dark, the ones who cannot afford $300 therapy sessions, those are the people who should have access to it first. So for those who find it through this message, the price is not $49, it is $39. That price is not available on Amazon. It is not available on Spotify. It is not available anywhere else. It exists only through the link I have placed in the description and the pinned comment below this message. And let me put that number in perspective for you. $39 divided by 365 days, that is roughly 10 cents per day, a dime, for access to the same gamma activation technology that would cost you $300 per session in a clinical setting or $7,000 to do at home with professional equipment. 10 cents a day for the ability to recalibrate the frequency you were born with, and that the world turned down without your permission. And it does not come alone. When you access it through the link I have provided, you also receive 4 additional resources at no extra cost. The first is an audio track designed specifically for children called Genius Child, created to support focus and confidence in young minds. The second is the original book that inspired the film known as The Secret, a book that focuses on the practical mechanics of financial transformation, currently selling for $20 on its own. The third is a guided visualization that walks you through 4 areas of your life: finances, relationships, health, and purpose, helping you see clearly what alignment looks like in each one. And the fourth is a printed infographic outlining the 5 most essential daily habits for sustaining the frequency shift over time. All of this comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. No time limit on how long you use it before deciding. If you listen and feel nothing, if no shift occurs, you receive your money back. Every penny. No questions. No forms to fill out. No awkward conversation. You are protected completely. And I need to tell you something important about this. There are websites right now, today, using the name of this technology to sell counterfeit versions. Audio files that look similar, that use similar names, that claim to do the same thing, but they do not contain the precise brain entrainment calibration that makes this work. They are regular audio dressed up to look like neuroscience, and they will not produce the same result because the technology is not in the sound you hear. It is in the frequency pattern embedded beneath it. The only way to ensure you are receiving the genuine version, with the full calibration, the 4 bonuses, and the money-back guarantee, is through the link in the description and pinned comment of this message. Do not search for it on Amazon. Do not look for it on YouTube or Spotify. Those versions are not the same. If what I have shared resonates with your spirit, if this feels like something that was meant to reach you tonight, the link is in the description and the pinned comment. Only if you feel led. Only if something inside you confirms that this is the next step in your journey. I am not here to pressure you. I am here to show you the door. Whether you walk through it is between you and the voice that brought you here. Now, with or without that tool, what I am about to give you next is something you can begin using tonight. It costs nothing. It requires no equipment, and it is the framework that will prepare you to receive provision, whether you access the audio track or not. I call it the Overflow Frequency Protocol, and I want you to remember that name because it is going to become part of your daily rhythm. The Overflow Frequency Protocol has 3 steps, 7 minutes total, and each step serves a specific purpose in recalibrating your brain from survival frequency to receiving frequency. The first step is called the clearing, and it takes 2 minutes. Here is how it works. When you wake up in the morning, before you check your phone, before you look at emails, before you open a single notification, you ask yourself one question. What frequency am I operating in right now? Not what am I feeling, what frequency am I in? And you be honest. If you woke up with anxiety, if the first thought in your mind was a bill or a deadline or a problem that followed you from yesterday, then you are in beta, survival frequency, stress mode, and that is okay. You are not judging it. You are naming it, because you cannot shift what you refuse to identify. The clearing is the act of naming your current frequency, out loud if possible, silently if needed. I am in beta right now. I am in survival mode. My brain is focused on threat, and with that naming, the grip loosens. Not because naming is magic, because awareness interrupts autopilot. Your brain has been running on survival frequency for so long, it forgot it had other options. The clearing reminds it. The second step is called the tuning. It takes 3 minutes. After the clearing, you shift intentionally. Close your eyes and, in your mind, picture the river of provision we have been talking about throughout this message. See it clearly. It is not a small stream. It is wide. It is deep. It is moving with a steady, powerful current, and it is flowing directly toward you. As you hold that image, breathe, slowly, deeply. With each exhale, imagine the static in your brain quieting, the noise of beta fading, the survival frequency losing its grip. And with each inhale, imagine gamma rising, not straining upward, rising naturally, like a frequency that was always there, just buried under years of noise, now surfacing because you finally gave it permission. If you have access to the 7-minute audio I mentioned, this is where you would use it. The audio replaces the need for visualization by directly entraining your brain into gamma. But if you do not have it, the visualization works. It is slower. It requires more consistency. But it works. The third step is called the receiving. It takes 2 minutes. This is the step most people skip, and it is the step that matters most. After the clearing and the tuning, you declare, out loud or silently, you declare what you are now open to receive. Not what you are trying to get, not what you are chasing, what you are receiving. Because provision is not something you hunt down. Provision is something you position yourself to catch. The declaration sounds like this: I am awake. My frequency is rising. I am able to see the opportunities that are already present in my life today. I receive the provision that has been assigned to me. I am not chasing. I am positioned. The river is flowing, and I am standing in its path. 2 minutes of clearing, 3 minutes of tuning, 2 minutes of receiving, 7 minutes total. Every morning, before the world demands your attention, before beta takes hold, before the calculator comes out and the math starts again. This is not meditation, this is recalibration. And the difference is important. Meditation asks you to empty your mind. Recalibration asks you to tune your mind, to shift it from a frequency that cannot perceive provision to a frequency that perceives it everywhere. Now I want to do something with you, right here, right now, and you do not need to move from wherever you are. You do not need to stand up or close your eyes or do anything that requires effort. I just need your attention for about 60 seconds. I want you to picture the river, not the one in a painting, not one from a nature show, your river, the one that has been flowing through your life this entire time, carrying provision you could not see because the frequency was wrong. See it in your mind. It is wider than you expected, deeper than you feared. The water is not still. It is moving, steadily, powerfully, with a current that has been building behind years of your patience, years of your faithfulness, years of your silent endurance. Now picture yourself stepping forward, not watching from the bank, not analyzing from a safe distance, stepping in. Feel the water around your ankles, cool, real, moving. This is not imaginary. This is rehearsal. Your brain does not know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. The same neural pathways fire. The same gamma activation occurs. When you see yourself receiving, your brain begins preparing to receive. Now feel the water rise, past your knees, past your waist, not with fear. With the steady certainty of someone who knows this river was always theirs. It was flowing before you could see it. It was moving before you believed it. And now that your eyes are open, now that the frequency is shifting, the river is no longer passing you by. You are standing in the middle of it. Hold that image, just for a moment longer. Feel the weight of provision pressing gently against you from every direction, not overwhelming, sustaining. Feel the current carrying you forward instead of requiring you to swim. This is what it feels like when gamma is awake. This is what provision looks like when the frequency is right. Not chasing, not struggling. Standing in the flow and allowing the river to do what rivers do. If something shifted inside you during that moment, if you felt even a flicker of the weight lifting or the fog thinning, then your brain just demonstrated something important. It showed you that it still knows how to access gamma. The pathway is not destroyed, it is dormant. And dormant things can be awakened. Go to the comments right now and type the words, I receive. 2 words. That is all. Let those words be your first declaration from this new frequency. Not I hope, not I wish, not someday. I receive. Present tense, active voice. The posture of someone whose eyes are finally open. Now, I want to prepare you for what comes next, because we are not finished. Everything I have shown you so far, the formation, the frequency, the science, the tool, the protocol, all of it explains why provision was delayed and how to reactivate the part of your brain that perceives it. And that is enormous. That knowledge alone will begin shifting things for many of you within days. But there is still something standing between you and the full flow of that river. Something I have not named yet. Something that is not about your faith, not about your brain frequency, not about anything external. It is something deeper, something inside you that you did not put there, that you did not choose, that has been operating quietly beneath every financial decision you have ever made. And when I name it, you are going to recognize it instantly. You are going to feel it before I finish describing it. And in that moment of recognition, you are going to understand why some chosen ones who know the truth, who believe the truth, who have activated the frequency, still find themselves deflecting provision at the very moment it arrives. What I am about to reveal is the hardest part of this message. It is also the part that sets you free. Stay with me. We are going into the deepest water now. I need to name something now that lives inside you. Something you did not put there. Something you did not choose. Something that was installed so early and so quietly that you have mistaken it for your own voice your entire life. And the reason I have waited until now to name it is because you needed everything I just showed you first. You needed the formation truth. You needed the frequency truth. You needed to understand the river and the gamma and the science and the tool. Because without all of that as a foundation, what I am about to say would sound like a motivational cliché. And it is not a cliché. It is the single most important obstacle between you and every dollar, every opportunity, every open door that has your name written on it. Here it is. You do not believe you deserve it. Not at the surface. At the surface, you believe. At the surface, you pray for provision, and you mean it. At the surface, you declare abundance, and you speak blessing over your finances, and you do the affirmations, and you claim the promises, and you show up every day ready to receive what has been assigned to you. But beneath the surface, in the place where your conscious mind cannot reach, in the basement of your beliefs, where the lights are never turned on and the doors have been sealed since childhood, down there, in that place, there is a voice, and it has been saying the same thing for as long as you can remember. This is not for people like you. You know this voice, not because you have studied it, because you have felt it. You have felt it every single time you got close to a financial breakthrough and something inside you tightened. You have felt it when someone offered you an opportunity that seemed too good, and your first instinct was not excitement, but suspicion. You have felt it when a windfall arrived, unexpected money, a gift, a bonus, a check you were not expecting, and instead of feeling relief, you felt anxiety. Instead of gratitude, you felt guilt. Instead of receiving it fully, you immediately started calculating how quickly you could give it away, spend it on someone else, or find a reason why you did not really need it. That reaction, that automatic, involuntary, below-the-surface response that turns provision into discomfort, that is not caution, that is not humility, that is not wisdom, that is unworthiness. And it is the first layer of what has been blocking your river. Let me show you how deep this goes. Because unworthiness is not a single feeling. It is a system. It has layers, and each layer has been doing a specific job inside your financial life without your conscious awareness. The first layer is the one I just named. The deep, unexamined belief that provision at the level the divine has prepared for you is simply not meant for someone like you. Not someone with your background, not someone with your history, not someone who has made the mistakes you have made. This belief was not formed by theology or logic. It was formed by environment, by watching the adults around you struggle with money and absorbing the unspoken conclusion that struggle is normal and abundance is suspicious. By hearing phrases repeated so casually, they embedded themselves into your operating system without anyone noticing. Money does not grow on trees. We cannot afford that. Rich people are different from us. That is for them, not for people like US. Those phrases were not philosophy. They were programming. And they programmed a belief that sits so deep inside you that your conscious prayers for abundance run directly into it, like water hitting a wall buried underground. The water does not know the wall is there. The prayer does not know the belief is there. But the wall stops the flow just the same. The second layer is harder to name because it disguises itself as something noble. It is the fear of success. I know that sounds contradictory. You have been praying for success. You have been begging for provision. You have been lying awake at night wishing for the drought to end. How can you simultaneously want success and fear it? Because they are not opposites. They coexist. And the fear does not live in the same room as the desire. The desire lives in your conscious mind, in the daylight, in the part of you that prays and plans and works. The fear lives in the basement, in the dark, in the part of you that whispers questions you would never say out loud. Questions like, what if I get the money and I cannot manage it? What if provision arrives and I make the wrong decisions and lose everything and end up worse than I am now? What if success changes me into someone I do not recognize? What if the people I love cannot follow me where I am going? What if I rise and they resent me for it? What if I get everything I have been praying for and discover that I was never qualified to hold it? Those questions, have you heard them? Late at night, in the margins of your prayers, in the breath between your declarations of faith and the silence that follows. Have you heard that voice asking those questions, not loudly, not aggressively, just quietly, persistently, like a drip from a faucet you cannot find? That is success terror, and it is more common among chosen ones than any other group of people on earth. Because chosen ones feel the weight of their calling, they understand that what is coming is not casual, it is not small, it is not a minor upgrade to their current life. It is a complete restructuring, and the honest, self-aware part of them, the part that knows their own weaknesses, their own patterns, their own history of stumbling, that part is genuinely afraid that the weight of the blessing will be heavier than the weight of the drought. And I want you to hear me say this clearly, because I do not think anyone has ever said it to you. That fear is not weakness. That fear is wisdom. The people who crash under the weight of sudden provision are the ones who had no fear at all. The ones who rushed into abundance with no awareness of its weight, no respect for its responsibility, no understanding of how quickly money can destroy what it was meant to build. Those people had no fear because they had no awareness. And their lack of awareness is what broke them. Your fear is different. Your fear comes from awareness, from knowing that this is real, from understanding that what is being prepared for you is not a toy. It is a weapon, a tool, a resource that will either build something that outlasts you or consume you from the inside if it is not stewarded correctly. That healthy fear, that trembling respect for the weight of what is coming, that is one of the strongest indicators that you are ready. Not because you feel ready, because you feel the weight. And feeling the weight means you are taking it seriously. And taking it seriously is exactly what the next season requires. Now, the third layer. This one is going to feel like I opened your journal and read the pages you never show anyone. Self-sabotage. You know what I am talking about. You do not need me to define it. You have lived it. You have watched yourself do it. And the most maddening part is that you watched yourself do it while you were doing it, fully aware that you were dismantling your own progress, and unable to stop. You got close to a breakthrough, a job offer, a business opportunity, a relationship that could have opened doors, and something inside you found a way to derail it. You said the wrong thing at the wrong time. You missed the deadline by 1 day. You picked a fight with the person who was trying to help you. You made a financial decision that made no logical sense, spending money you could not afford to spend at the exact moment you needed to be saving it, as if some invisible hand inside your chest grabbed the steering wheel and jerked it toward the ditch, right when the road was finally clearing. That is self-sabotage, and it is not random. It is not stupidity. It is not bad luck. It is a protection mechanism. Your nervous system learned something a long time ago, probably before you were old enough to understand what it was learning, and it made a rule. And the rule says this: staying at the level you know is safe. Rising to a level you have never been is dangerous. And whenever you approach that unknown level, the mechanism activates and pulls you back to familiar ground, even if familiar ground is painful, because the nervous system would rather keep you in known pain than risk unknown territory. This is not a character flaw. This is survival programming. Your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. The problem is that the training happened when you were a child, and the rules it created no longer apply to the adult you have become. You are not 7 years old anymore. You are not dependent on a household where money was a source of anxiety. You are not the person who needed to stay small to stay safe. But your nervous system does not know that. It is still running the old software, and every time provision approaches, the old software sees threat instead of gift, danger instead of blessing, and it activates the sabotage sequence to bring you back to the only level it has been programmed to trust. And now, the fourth layer. The one that might be the heaviest of all because it disguises itself as love. Growth, guilt. This one does not feel like fear. It does not feel like sabotage. It feels like compassion. It feels like loyalty. It feels like love. And that is what makes it the hardest to recognize and the last to release. Growth guilt is what you feel when you realize that stepping into your provision means stepping away from people who cannot follow you there. It is the weight that presses down on your chest when you think about prospering while someone you love is still struggling. It is the voice that says, "How can I have abundance when my mother is still working 2 jobs? How can I celebrate a financial breakthrough when my best friend is still drowning in debt? How can I rise when the people I care about are still stuck in the same place I am leaving behind?" And so you do something that no one asks you to do, but that your guilt demands. You shrink. You slow down. You dim your own light so that the people around you do not have to squint. You refuse to receive fully because receiving fully would create a distance between you and the people you love. And the guilt of that distance feels worse than the pain of the drought. I see you. I see the way you have been holding yourself back, not because you lack ambition, not because you lack faith, because you love deeply. And your love has been weaponized against your own provision by a guilt that was never yours to carry. Let me lay these 4 layers side by side so you can see the full picture. Unworthiness says, "This is not for someone like you." Success terror says, "What if you cannot handle it?" Self-sabotage says, "Let me pull you back to safety before you get hurt." Growth guilt says, "How dare you prosper while others suffer?" 4 voices, 4 layers, all operating beneath your awareness, all working together, not to harm you, but to protect you, to protect the version of you that was small and scared and dependent. The version that needed those walls because the world outside was too unpredictable. But that version of you no longer exists. The drought killed it. The formation rebuilt it. The frequency revealed it. And what stands in its place now, the person listening to this message right now, is not the person those walls were built for. You have outgrown the protection. and the protection that once kept you safe is now the cage that keeps your provision locked outside. I want to take you somewhere now, into a moment, and I need you to be honest about whether you have lived this exact scene. Imagine that tomorrow morning, something unexpected arrives. A check, a transfer, an email with numbers that make your hands shake, money that you did not manufacture, money that was not the result of overtime or side hustles or selling something you needed, money that simply appeared, provision that landed in your life without explanation. Now pay attention to your body, not your mind, your body, because your mind will say the right things. Your mind will say, praise the source, this is a blessing, I am grateful. But your body, what does your body do? Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach clench? Does a wave of something that is not quite joy and not quite fear wash through you? Something that feels like you have been handed an object that might be a gift or might be a grenade, and you cannot tell which. Does your mind immediately race to who you should give it to? Not from generosity, from discomfort, from the urgent need to get rid of the unfamiliar weight of having more than enough. Do you hear a voice? Not from the outside, from the deepest basement of your being, saying, this will not last. Something will go wrong. This is too good. Something bad is coming to balance this out. If you felt any of that, if your body responded to the hypothetical of receiving provision with anything other than pure, settled, quiet peace, then you just met the wall. The invisible wall beneath the ground that has been stopping the river. And here is what I need you to understand. That wall is not you. It was installed in you by experience, by environment, by a world that taught you, without ever saying it out loud, that abundance is dangerous and scarcity is safe. Now let me show you something about this wall that will change how you see it entirely. There is a force that has been using this wall against you. And I am not talking about a person. I am not talking about a system. I am talking about a strategic, intentional, intelligent opposition that recognized your calling before you did and has been working quietly and persistently to keep you in survival mode for your entire adult life. This opposition cannot stop what has been ordained for you. It does not have that authority. It cannot dry up the river. It cannot cancel the shalam verdict. It cannot undo the formation or deactivate the calling that was placed on your life before you took your first breath. It does not have the power to prevent your provision, but it has the power to make you reject it. And that is exactly what it has been doing. Every voice that told you people like us do not get that kind of money, that was strategy. Every comparison that made you feel behind while others seemed to move forward effortlessly, that was strategy. Every moment of self-sabotage at the edge of breakthrough, every surge of guilt when something good began to form, every tightening in your chest when provision approached, that was not your weakness talking. That was a calculated, deliberate strategy designed to keep a chosen one operating beneath their frequency, beneath their capacity, beneath the level of provision that was always meant for them. The intensity of the attack is always proportional to the importance of the assignment. If your financial drought had no purpose, if the provision waiting for you was ordinary, if your calling was average, the opposition would not waste resources on you. You do not fortify a position that has no strategic value. The very fact that the resistance has been this strong, this persistent, this layered, this exhausting, is proof that what is on the other side of it is not ordinary. The opposition was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to delay you, to drain you, to keep you so focused on survival that you never had the energy to look up and see that the river was right there, flowing, full, waiting. But here is the part the opposition did not account for. You are still here, after everything, after the drought, and the silence, and the math in the dark, and the guilt, and the fear, and the sabotage. After all, 4 layers of resistance. You are still listening. You are still standing. You are still reaching for something that every logical calculation says you should have given up on years ago. That stubbornness, that refusal to die in the desert when dying would have been easier than walking. That is the proof that the opposition lost the war before this message began. Let me tell you a story about someone who proved this. A man, 47 years old. He does not want his name shared, so I will not share it. But the details are real. 9 months ago, his career collapsed. Not gradually. In a single month, 3 major contracts that represented the foundation of his income were cancelled. Different clients, different reasons. But the timing was almost surgical, as if something had reached into his financial life and pulled out the load-bearing walls one by one. He lost 60% of his income in 30 days, and the remaining 40% was not enough to cover his obligations. He was staring at the same calculator you have stared at, doing the same math, feeling the same silence. His first instinct was to scramble, to send out dozens of proposals, to call every contact in his network, to hustle his way back from the edge the way he had always done before. But something told him not to. He could not explain it logically. Every financial advisor would have told him to act immediately, aggressively, desperately. But a voice inside him, deeper than logic, deeper than panic, said, "Be still." So he did something that looked, from the outside, like madness. He went silent. He deleted his social media. He stopped pitching. He stopped networking. He stopped performing for an audience that was not watching. And he entered a 60-day period of quiet realignment. Not laziness. Not giving up. Strategic stillness. He continued doing his work with excellence. He continued serving the few clients he had left with the same quality he would give 100. But he stopped chasing. He stopped performing. He stopped trying to manufacture what he believed was meant to arrive. On day 52, his phone rang. A company he had never contacted, a company he had never heard of, reached out to him. They had found his work through a referral chain so unlikely he could not trace it. They offered him a contract, not a small one. A contract worth triple what he had lost. Not just replacement, shalam, overpayment. When I asked him what he thought happened, he said something I will never forget. He said, "I did not find the provision. The provision found me, but it could only find me once I stopped running long enough for it to catch up." He proved himself in silence before he promoted himself in public. And the provision that found him was not looking for the loudest voice in the room. It was looking for the stillest, the most positioned, the most aligned. That is the blueprint. Not for everyone, but for chosen ones. Provision does not reward hustle in the way the world teaches. Provision rewards alignment, positioning, the quiet, unshakable certainty that what has been ordained cannot be cancelled, and the patience to stand in the river's path instead of chasing it downstream. If what I just described, the 4 layers, the wall, the opposition, the story, if any of it landed in you, if you felt something loosening in a place that has been locked tight for years, then I want you to go to the comments and type the words, "I release." 2 words. And I want you to mean them. Not as a formula, not as a wish, as a decision. I release the unworthiness that was installed in me before I was old enough to question it. I release the fear of a success that my spirit was built to carry. I release the sabotage mechanism that was protecting a version of me that no longer exists. I release the guilt that was using my love as a weapon against my provision. Type "I release." And let that be the moment the wall begins to crack. Now that you have named the wall, now that you have seen its 4 layers and understood where they came from and why they were built, I need to do something for you that no one has ever done. And the reason no one has done it is because most people skip this step. They name the problem and then rush straight to the solution. They tear down the wall without ever giving you permission to exist on the other side of it. And you need permission. Not because you are weak, because the guilt and the unworthiness and the fear have been telling you for so long that you are not allowed, that before you can step into what is coming, you need to hear, clearly and specifically, that you are allowed to be there. So listen to me. You are allowed to have more than enough. Not just enough to survive, not just enough to cover the bills with nothing left over. More, overflow, provision that exceeds the gap and spills over the edges of your need into territory you have never occupied before. You are allowed to be there. You are allowed to prosper while others are still in process. Their timeline is not your timeline. Their season is not your season. And your delay of your own blessing does not accelerate theirs. You staying small does not make anyone else bigger. You dimming your light does not make anyone else brighter. The only thing your shrinking accomplishes is keeping 2 people in darkness instead of 1. You are allowed to receive without guilt. Provision is not a transaction that requires you to prove your worthiness before the exchange is complete. You do not owe a presentation. You do not owe a justification. You do not owe an explanation to anyone for why the river chose to stop at your door. You are allowed to outgrow financial patterns that generations before you could not break. You are not betraying your family by becoming the first one to prosper. You are not dishonoring your ancestors by living a life they could not afford to imagine. You are honoring them. Every grandmother who worked 2 jobs so her children could eat. Every grandfather who gave up his dreams so the next generation could have a chance at theirs. When you prosper, their sacrifice is not erased. It is completed. You are the harvest of seeds they planted in soil they never got to see bloom. You are allowed to be wealthy and spiritual at the same time. Abundance is not the opposite of holiness. Scarcity is not a badge of righteousness. The source of all creation did not design a universe of overflow and then command you to live in lack. Provision is not worldly. Provision is divine strategy placed in human hands. You are allowed to stop apologizing for the overflow that is coming. You do not need to make it smaller so it fits inside other people's comfort zones. You do not need to downplay it so no one feels threatened. You do not need to add disclaimers to your blessing. And you do not owe anyone an explanation for becoming who you were always designed to be. I want those words to settle, not in your mind, in the place beneath your mind, in the basement where the old voices live. I want these permissions to walk down there and open every door that guilt sealed shut, because what comes next requires you to receive at full capacity. And you cannot receive at full capacity if part of you still believes you are not allowed to be in the room where the provision is being served. Now let me give you a framework that will protect what is about to enter your life. I call it the Provision Posture Framework. Remember that name. Most people think provision fails because it never arrives. That is rarely the truth. For chosen ones especially, provision fails because it arrives and the receiver was not positioned correctly. They were chasing when they should have been standing still. They were grasping when they should have been discerning. They were spending when they should have been protecting. The Provision Posture Framework has 3 circles. Think of them as 3 zones of engagement with money and opportunity. And each circle has a different rule. The first circle is the receiving posture. And the rule of this circle is simple. Stop chasing. Start positioning. The river does not reward the person who runs downstream after it. The river rewards the person who stands in its path with their arms open and their feet planted. Positioning means doing your work with excellence and releasing the outcome. It means showing up fully to what is in front of you today without manufacturing what is meant to arrive tomorrow. It means trusting that provision knows your address, because the same force that built you during the drought is the same force that is directing the river. The second circle is the discernment gate. And the rule of this circle is critical. Not every opportunity is your opportunity. When provision begins to flow, and it will, not every door that opens has your name on it. Some doors open to test your discernment. Some opportunities arrive to distract you from the one that is truly yours. The discernment gate is the practice of pausing before every financial decision, every offer, every opportunity that presents itself, and asking one question: does this align with my assignment, or does this align with my anxiety? Anxiety grabs the first option. Assignment waits for the right one. And the difference between the two will determine whether provision builds something lasting or evaporates within months. The third circle is the overflow protocol. And this is the circle that most people never reach because they spend everything in the first two. The rule of the third circle is this: when provision arrives, the first action is not spending. The first action is protecting. Overflow must be guarded before it is distributed. Not out of greed, out of wisdom, because the same opposition that tried to block your provision will shift its strategy the moment provision arrives. It will no longer try to prevent. It will try to drain. It will send opportunities that look like blessings but function like leaks. It will introduce people who present as helpers but operate as funnels. The overflow protocol is the practice of creating a protected space for your provision, a space where it can grow before it is given, where it can compound before it is distributed, where the river can deepen before it widens. Receiving, discerning, protecting, 3 postures, 3 circles, and together they form the structure that will hold the weight of what is about to enter your life. Now I want to tell you something about who you are becoming, not who you were, not who you are today, who you are becoming, because the person standing on the other side of this message is not the same person who pressed play. You are no longer just a chosen one. That title is where your journey started, but it is not where it ends. You are a cycle breaker. The financial patterns that ran for generations, the scarcity that moved like a virus from parent to child to grandchild, passing through every branch of your family tree without resistance, those patterns crash into you and go no further. They end in your generation. They end with your name. Not because you are stronger than every person who came before you, because you are the one who was built, through drought and formation and frequency and fire, to carry the weight of breaking what no one before you could break. Hold that identity. Do not let it go, because what I am about to show you is the deepest truth in this entire message. It is the revelation that makes everything, every single thing we have discussed, from the opening words until now, snap into a single picture so clear it will take your breath away. I told you earlier that I would show you 4 things during this journey. Why provision was delayed, a specific tool to recalibrate your mind, the truth about who you are, and an activation that seals this shift into your spirit. The first 3 have been delivered. You now understand the formation. You understand the frequency. You understand the 4-layer wall and how to dismantle it. You have the overflow frequency protocol. You have the provision posture framework. You have the permission to receive. But the 4th, the deepest, the one that restructures everything, that is what I have been building toward since the first word of this message. And we have arrived. I need you to hear this with your full being. Not just your ears, not just your mind, your chest, your gut, the place where truth lands before your brain has time to analyze it. You were never lacking provision. Let me say that again. Because your mind is going to try to argue with it, and I need the truth to reach deeper than your mind before the argument begins. You were never lacking provision. Not for a single day of your drought, not for a single night of your math in the dark, not for a single moment of your silent carrying. The river was always flowing, through every season of drought, through every month of empty accounts, through every prayer that felt like it bounced off the ceiling. The river never stopped. The provision never dried up. The source never ran out. What you were lacking was not provision. What you were lacking was the awareness that provision was already there. The eyes to see it, the frequency to detect it, the internal permission to receive it, the dismantled wall to let it through. The drought was real. I am not minimizing what you lived through. The pain was genuine. The struggle was brutal. The weight was crushing. All of that was real. But the cause of the drought was never an absence of water. The cause was a blindfold, a frequency locked in beta that could not perceive gamma-level provision, a wall of unworthiness and fear and sabotage and guilt that deflected the river even as it flowed past your door. An instrument, your brain, detuned from the frequency it was designed to operate at, playing a fraction of the notes it was built to play. The river was always there. The provision was always flowing, and you, chosen one, were always standing in its path. You just could not see it. And that is why the title of this message says you have already won. Not that you are going to win, not that winning is on the way, that you have won. Past tense, completed, finished. The war was never between you and the world. The war was never between you and the economy. The war was never between you and the people who seemed to prosper while you struggled. The war was between the version of you that could see the river and the version of you that could not. And through every lesson in this message, through the formation and the frequency and the wall and the dismantling, the version that could not see has been replaced by the version that can. You won the war the moment your eyes opened. And your eyes are opening right now. Let me show you what this means on a level that goes beyond English, beyond modern language, into the original text. In the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, there is a phrase that has been translated into English so many times it has lost its original weight. In English, it reads something like, "Now to the one who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine." Immeasurably more. That is the English, and it sounds impressive, but it does not capture what the original language actually says. The original Greek word is perisio. Perisio does not mean more. Perisio means overflow. Specifically, it means to exceed the capacity of the container, to pour into a vessel until the vessel cannot hold another drop, and then to keep pouring, not because the pourer miscalculated, because the design was always to overflow. The intention was never to fill you exactly to the brim. The intention was to pour until the excess ran down the sides and spilled onto the ground around you and reached the feet of everyone standing near you. That is perisio. That is the divine provision model. Not enough, not barely sufficient, not just covering the bills with $2 left over. Overflow, provision so abundant it exceeds the container it was poured into. And here is the part that connects directly to everything I showed you about the formation. Do you remember what I said about the drought? That the drought was not punishment, that it was construction, that the maker of the vessel was rebuilding you, expanding your capacity, reinforcing your walls, sealing your cracks. Now, you understand why. The rebuilding was not so you could survive the provision. The rebuilding was so you could hold the overflow. Because perisio, the divine provision model, the kind of abundance that is headed for your life right now, That kind of provision would shatter a vessel that had not been rebuilt. It would flood a house that had not been reinforced. It would overwhelm a mind that had not been recalibrated. The drought expanded you. The formation strengthened you. The frequency teaching opened your eyes. The wall dismantling cleared the path. And now the vessel is ready. Picture it this way. Someone is filling a cup with water, but the cup is small. Too small for the amount of water that needs to be poured. Instead of spilling water everywhere and wasting it, the one pouring decides to stop, to set the cup down, to spend time rebuilding the cup, making it wider, making it deeper, reinforcing the base, sealing the cracks. You were that cup. The drought was the rebuilding, and the water, the provision, the Perisio overflow, was never cancelled. It was paused, held back, stored up, building pressure behind the dam while the cup was being prepared. And the cup is ready now. The vessel is rebuilt. The walls are reinforced. The frequency is waking up. The internal blocks are being dismantled. The pouring is about to begin. And I hear the Spirit saying over your life right now, "My child, I did not withhold provision from you because I forgot you. I withheld it because I was building you. Every night you sat in the dark with that calculator, I was sitting with you. Every tear you would not let fall, I caught before it reached the ground. Every prayer you whispered in exhaustion, every declaration you spoke through clenched teeth when your faith was running on fumes, I heard every one. I was not punishing you. I was preparing you, because what I have stored for you cannot fit into the person you were. It can only fit into the person you have become. And you have become enough. You have expanded enough. You have endured enough. You have been formed enough. The waiting is over. The cup is ready. And what I pour will not stop at the brim. Now let me tell you who you are. Not who you hope to be, not who you are trying to become, who you are. As you sit here, carrying every scar from the drought and every lesson from the formation and every frequency that is waking up inside you, you are a cycle breaker. Financial patterns that ran through your family for generations, poverty mindsets, scarcity beliefs, survival programming passed from parent to child, like a chain that no one could see and no one could snap. Those patterns crash into you and go no further. You are the wall they hit. You are the generation where the chain breaks. And everything that comes after you, every child, every grandchild, every life your provision touches, will live in the freedom you fought to create. You are a builder. What you construct with the provision that is coming will not be consumed in your lifetime. It will outlast you. The decisions you make in the next season, the investments you steward, the resources you allocate, will create structures, opportunities, and open doors for people whose names you will never know, but whose lives will be permanently changed because you chose to build instead of consume. You are a light bearer. Your financial breakthrough will not happen in a vacuum. People will see it. People who are still in their drought will watch your river arrive, and something inside them will reignite. Not because you preach to them, because you exist. Because your transformation is visible. Because the proof of your shift cannot be hidden any more than a city on a hill can be hidden at night. You are a pioneer. You are going first into territory your family has never seen. There is no roadmap for where you are headed because no one in your lineage has been there before. You are drawing the map as you walk, and the path you cut through the wilderness will become the highway that others follow. And you are a hope restorer. When people look at your life and see what happened, when they compare where you were to where you are, when they witness the shalam, the overpayment, the Perisio overflow that has your name on it, they will believe again. Not because you told them to believe, because your life became the evidence they could not argue with. If you accept this identity, if something in the deepest part of your spirit just confirmed that these words are not flattery but description, then I want you to go to the comments right now and type 2 words. I am, not I will be, not I hope to be. I am. Present tense. Settled tense. The tense of someone who is not becoming. The tense of someone who has arrived. Type I am. And say it with the force of every silent night, every calculated loss, every survival math, every drought you walked through to reach this moment. Now, what comes next is what I told you about at the very beginning. The part that is not information, the part that is activation, the commissioning, the ceremony. I told you to stay until the end, because the final words of this message are the ones that seal everything we have walked through into your spirit in a way that does not fade when the screen goes dark. We are almost there. Do not leave now. Not after everything, not after the formation, not after the frequency, not after the wall and the dismantling and the river and the identity. Do not walk away one step before the finish line. What I am about to speak over your life and your finances is the reason this message was placed in front of you tonight. Stay with me. We are entering sacred ground. Before we enter the activation, I need to prepare you for what is about to happen on the other side of this message. Because the shift we have been walking through is not limited to your bank account. When the river reaches you, it does not fill one area of your life and leave the rest dry. It floods everything, and you need to know what that looks like so you are not caught off guard when the ground beneath your feet starts moving in directions you did not expect. There are 3 areas of your life that are being reorganized right now. Not next year, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, in the unseen realm, while you have been sitting here listening, the architecture of your life has been quietly restructuring. And what I am about to describe is not a wish list, it is a weather report. I am telling you what is already forming, not what might form someday if you pray hard enough. The first area is your relationships. You have already noticed this, even if you did not have language for it. People who were assigned to your drought season are beginning to feel distant. Conversations that used to fill you now drain you. Friendships that once felt essential now feel like obligations, and you have been feeling guilty about it, wondering what is wrong with you, wondering why you are pulling away from people you once needed. Nothing is wrong with you. You are being repositioned. The same way a chess piece is moved from one square to another before the decisive move, your relational landscape is being rearranged. Not because the people from your drought were bad. Many of them loved you. Many of them stayed when others left. But their assignment was to walk with you through the wilderness. And the wilderness is ending. Some of those relationships will transition into the new season. The ones built on genuine love and mutual calling, will adapt and grow. But others, the ones built on shared struggle, on codependency, on the bond of 2 drowning people holding onto each other, those will naturally release. Not with conflict, with completion. And in their place, new connections are being positioned. People you have not met yet. People who carry resources, wisdom, opportunities, and doors that you need for the next season and that no one in your current circle can provide. Provision partners, mentors who have walked the road you are about to walk, collaborators whose strengths fill the exact gaps in your ability. These people are already in motion. The divine is orchestrating introductions that will look from the outside like coincidence. But you will know better, because your gamma is waking up, and gamma sees the pattern behind the coincidence. For those entering this season, I want to say this gently. Do not cling to what is releasing, and do not force what is arriving. Both movements, the letting go and the drawing near, are being handled by a hand that sees the full board. Your job is not to manage the transitions. Your job is to remain positioned, to stay in the river, and to trust that the same intelligence that built you through the drought is now building the circle that will surround you in the overflow. The second area is your purpose. Your calling is about to get louder, not incrementally, dramatically. What was unclear for years, what felt like a whisper you could never quite make out, is going to sharpen into a voice you cannot ignore. The fog that sat between you and your assignment is the same fog that sat between you and your provision, and it was caused by the same thing. A frequency locked in survival mode that could not perceive what gamma would reveal. As gamma wakes up, as the beta fog lifts, as your brain begins operating at the frequency it was designed for, your purpose will not feel like a distant abstraction anymore. It will feel like a set of instructions being read to you in real time. You will know what to build. You will know who to serve. You will know where to focus. And the clarity will be so specific, so detailed, so actionable, that you will wonder how you ever functioned without it. But here is the qualifier. And I promised you honesty throughout this message, so I will not stop now. Clarity of purpose does not mean ease of execution. Knowing your calling does not mean the calling will be comfortable. The next season will demand more from you than the drought did. Not more suffering, more responsibility, more decisions, more weight. The difference is that the weight of purpose carried in abundance feels entirely different from the weight of survival carried in lack. One crushes you, the other strengthens you, and you have been trained, through 13 years of formation, to carry weight without breaking. The third area is your provision itself. The financial structure of your life is being redesigned. Not just how much money comes in, how it comes. The channels through which provision reaches you are being multiplied. You have been living in a season where income came from one source, or maybe two, and if that source dried up, everything collapsed. That single channel structure was part of the drought design. It kept you vulnerable. It kept you dependent on one stream when you were meant to be fed by a river with 100 tributaries. In the next season, provision will not arrive through a single paycheck or a single client or a single opportunity. It will arrive through multiple channels, some of which you cannot currently imagine. Side doors, unexpected inheritances, business ideas that surface during your morning recalibration, investments that compound in ways that defy the math you are used to doing, generosity from people you barely know, returns on seeds you planted so long ago you forgot you sowed them. And I need to give you a timeline framework so you know what to watch for. Not dates. I cannot give you dates, but phases. Phase 1 is awareness, and you are in it right now. This is the phase where you see the river for the first time, where the formation makes sense, where the frequency begins to shift, where the wall starts cracking. Awareness is not provision, but it is the prerequisite for provision. You cannot receive what you cannot perceive, and right now, your perception is being radically expanded. Phase 2 is positioning. This begins in the days following this message. Positioning is where you apply the overflow frequency protocol daily, where you practice the provision posture framework, where you begin operating from receiving frequency instead of survival frequency. Positioning is where you stop chasing and start standing in the path of the river. This phase may last days, it may last weeks, it varies. But the signs of positioning are unmistakable. Clarity increases, anxiety decreases, decisions feel lighter, synchronicities multiply. Phase 3 is receiving. This is when the first tangible evidence arrives. An opportunity you did not seek, a conversation that leads to provision you did not engineer, a door that opens without you knocking, the first drops of the river reaching your feet. I cannot tell you the date. I can tell you the pattern, and the pattern is clear. When the formation is complete, when the frequency is active, when the wall is down, when the positioning is consistent, receiving follows, not as a reward for effort, as a natural consequence of alignment. Phase 4 is stewarding, and this is the phase that separates those who experience temporary relief from those who experience permanent transformation. Stewarding is where the overflow protocol from the provision posture framework becomes essential. Where you protect before you distribute, where you build before you spend, where you allow the river to deepen before you allow it to widen. This phase has no end date. It is not a season, it is a lifestyle. And it is the lifestyle of someone who understands that provision is not an event, it is a frequency. I cannot tell you which phase will begin tomorrow, but I can tell you, with the settled certainty of someone who has watched this pattern unfold again and again, that you are closer to phase 3 than you have ever been. The formation is complete, the frequency is waking, the wall is cracking, and the river is closer than your fear wants you to believe. Now, one more thing before we enter the sacred space. I want you to take this image with you into every morning for the rest of this season, not as a wish, as a practice. In your mind right now, wherever you are, I want you to stand up, not physically, mentally. Stand up inside yourself. Feel your full height, not the height the drought reduced you to, your real height. The height of someone whose gamma is active, whose identity is declared, whose wall is cracking, whose river is arriving. Now look around in your mind. You are standing in the middle of the river. The water is chest deep. It is warm, it is moving, and it is carrying everything you need. But you are not alone. Look further. On the banks of the river, on both sides, as far as you can see, other chosen ones, thousands of them, standing in their own rivers. Some are just entering the water for the first time. Some have been standing in it for years and are learning to let the current carry them. Some are still on the bank, watching, wondering if the water is safe. And you are standing in the middle. Not because you are better, because you got here first, because you listened, because you stayed when leaving was easier. And your standing, your visible, undeniable presence in the river of provision is the proof they need that the water is real, that the current is safe, and that chosen ones are not meant to live on the bank watching the river pass. You are not alone in this awakening. Right now, all across the world, chosen ones are going through this exact same shift. The frequency is rising globally. The walls are cracking in thousands of lives simultaneously. The rivers are converging, and what is emerging is not just individual breakthrough. It is a collective awakening of people who were designed to carry provision at a level the world has never seen. You are part of something much larger than your individual story. And your breakthrough is not just yours. It is a signal, a transmission, a frequency that others will pick up and begin resonating with because you had the courage to stand in the water first. Now let me give you one final tool before we enter the closing. Something you can use every morning alongside the overflow frequency protocol. I call it the abundance audit. 3 questions. Ask them every single morning. Write the answers if you can. Speak them if you cannot write. Question 1. What drained my frequency yesterday? Name it. Was it a conversation, a thought pattern, a habit, a person, a scrolling session that left you heavier than when you started? Name the drain, because drains you do not name become drains you do not fix. Question 2. What restored my frequency yesterday? Name that too. Was it silence, movement, a specific prayer, a moment of laughter? A conversation that filled you instead of emptying you. Name the restoration. Because restoration you do not name becomes restoration you do not repeat. Question 3. What one action today positions me in the river? Not 20 actions. 1. What is the single most aligned thing you can do today that moves you from watching the river to standing in it? Maybe it is applying for something you have been afraid to apply for. Maybe it is having a conversation you have been avoiding. Maybe it is simply doing your 7 minutes of recalibration before the world wakes up and demands your attention. One drain, one restoration, one positioning action. Every morning. That is the abundance audit. And over time, it will rewire your daily patterns from survival to receiving more effectively than any single dramatic gesture ever could. Now, I want to lay everything side by side one final time, because you have walked a long journey through this message, and before we enter the sacred space, I want you to see how far you have come. You entered this message believing you were lacking. You are leaving knowing you were always provided for. The river never stopped flowing. Your eyes were closed. They are open now. You entered carrying the weight of financial shame, the silent math, the pretending, the bills you memorized like prayers. You are leaving carrying the authority of someone who knows that the drought was not punishment. It was the most deliberate, most strategic, most loving formation your life has ever received. You entered with your mind locked in beta. Survival frequency, stress mode. The searchlight pointed at one tiny spot on the ground, while the entire landscape of provision surrounded you, unseen. You are leaving with your gamma waking up, the floodlight turning on, the fog beginning to lift. You entered believing the wall was permanent. That unworthiness was just who you are. That fear of success was a personality trait. That self-sabotage was a character flaw. That guilt was the price of love. You are leaving knowing the wall was installed, not inherent. And what is installed can be removed. You entered as someone fighting a war. You are leaving as someone who has already won, not because the river started flowing, because your eyes opened to a river that was always there. I want you to hold all of that, everything, the formation, the frequency, the wall, the dismantling, the river, the shalam, the perisuo, the identity, the protocol, the posture, the audit, all of it. Hold it in your chest like a single, unbreakable truth, because what I am about to speak over you is not information. It is activation. It is not a prayer in the way most people think of prayer. It is a commissioning, a ceremony, a sealing of everything we have walked through together into a frequency that does not fade when this message ends. This is the part I told you about from the very beginning, the part that stays with you. Take a breath. I want to begin with gratitude, not the gratitude of formality, the gratitude of someone who has walked through fire and realizes only now that the fire was not trying to consume them, it was forging them. Thank you for the drought, for every night of silence and calculation and carrying, for every morning that arrived heavier than the one before it and the one before that. Thank you, not because the suffering was good, because the formation was necessary, and the formation could not have happened in comfort. Thank you for the nights I sat with that calculator, because those nights built the discernment I will need for the overflow. Thank you for the bills I memorized, because that discipline will become the precision with which I steward abundance. Thank you for the gifts I could not give, because the ache of that absence taught me the weight of generosity in a way that having everything never could. Thank you for the conversations I avoided, the dinners I declined, the outings I missed because the shame of not having enough was louder than the desire to be present. Those moments taught me what it costs to live beneath my frequency, and I will never forget that cost. Thank you for the people who stayed, who loved me when I had nothing to offer, who did not ask what I could provide before they decided I was worth keeping. Thank you for showing me what real provision looks like before a single dollar enters the picture. And now I want to speak to the one who sees everything. You saw it, every single moment I just described. You did not turn away when I did the math in the dark. You did not look away when I pretended to be fine while crumbling inside. You did not leave the room when I questioned whether you had forgotten my address. You counted every day of the drought, not as punishment, as formation. You measured every tear, not as weakness, as proof that my capacity for feeling was still intact, that the gamma was not dead, that the sensitivity I thought was a liability was actually the instrument through which provision would be perceived. You saw the moments I almost quit, the mornings I could not find a reason to keep going, and kept going anyway because somewhere beneath the exhaustion there was a frequency I could not name that refused to let me stop. That was you. That frequency was you, humming beneath every moment of collapse, keeping the instrument alive even when I thought the music was over. You saw the faithfulness no one else saw. The tithing when the math said I could not. The giving when the account said I should not. The obedience in the small things that nobody tracked, nobody applauded, nobody recorded except you. You saw it. You counted it. And you filed it under shalam, under overpayment, under the category of investments that return not equal, but multiplied. Now I am going to release, and I want you to release with me. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now, in this moment, in this frequency. Let the releasing happen the way water releases from behind a dam when the wall is finally removed. I release the belief that provision is for other people and survival is for me. Release. I release the financial shame that was taught to me before I could choose it, absorbed into my operating system by an environment that normalized lack and suspicious abundance. Release. I release the ceiling that said this much and no more, the invisible line above my income that I have been afraid to cross because crossing it would make me visible, and visibility has never felt safe. Release. I release the fear of having more than I have ever had, the terror that what arrives will also depart. That breakthrough is always followed by breakdown, that the universe gives and then takes back double. That is not how shalam works. And I release the lie that it is. Release. I release the guilt of prospering while others are still in process. Their timeline is sacred. My timeline is sacred. And my shrinking does not accelerate their expansion. Release. I release the old frequency, the survival setting, the beta lock, the dimmed gamma, the fog that has been sitting between me and the river since the world turned down the light. Release. I release the need to control the timeline of my provision. I do not need to know the date. I do not need to see the schedule. I need only to be positioned. And I am positioned. Release. I release every voice, past and present, internal and external, human and otherwise, that ever spoke the words, people like you do not get blessed like that. Those words have no authority in my life. Those words have no frequency that can match the frequency rising inside me right now. Release. I release the self-sabotage mechanism, the old software, the protection protocol that was built for a child and has no jurisdiction over the adult I have become. I thank it for what it tried to do, and I dismiss it from service. Release. I release the war. The entire war. Every battle. Every front. Every internal conflict between the version of me that could see the river and the version that could not. The blind version has been retired. The seeing version is standing. And the war is over. I release it all. Let that sit. Do not rush past it. Let every release find its target inside you. Let the wall crack where it needs to crack. Let the water begin to move where it was blocked. Now I activate. And what I am about to speak is not a request. It is a commissioning. This is not the language of someone asking for permission. This is the language of someone who has been authorized through drought and formation and frequency and fire to call forth what was always ordained. I activate the full gamma frequency inside you, the setting that was placed in your brain before your first breath, the super brainwave that governed your genius, your intuition, your clarity, your capacity to perceive provision at every level. I call it awake, not gradually, not someday, now, in this moment. As these words reach your ears, the frequency is rising. The dimmer switch is being turned. The room is getting brighter, and you will feel it. Maybe not tonight, maybe tonight, but the activation has been spoken. And what is spoken from this frequency does not return empty. I activate the capacity to receive provision without guilt, without fear, without deflection, without the automatic flinch that turns blessing into anxiety. The receiver is online, the hands are open, the wall is cracked, and the water is moving through. I activate divine connections. The people who are meant to carry provision into your life, the ones who carry the contracts, the opportunities, the conversations, the doors, I call them into motion, not on your timeline, on the perfect timeline, the timeline that has been running underneath every delay, every detour, every reroute, guiding every piece into position for this exact season. I activate the river, let it flow, let it reach the ground that has been dry for years, let it find every crack in the soil, let it fill every empty basin, let it saturate the foundation that was built during the drought until the ground can hold no more and the overflow begins to spill into the lives of everyone standing near you. I activate your assignment. The calling that has been a whisper, I call it into full volume. The purpose that has been blurred, I call it into focus. The work that has been invisible, I call it into the light where it will be seen, valued, compensated, and multiplied. I activate the shalam, the overpayment, the restitution with interest. What the locust consumed, what the drought devoured, what the silence swallowed. Every dollar that passed you by while the frequency was dormant, every opportunity that slipped through while the wall stood, every season of lack that stretched longer than it should have because the old software kept pulling you back to survival, I activate the divine court ruling that says it all comes back, and it comes back multiplied. Now I cover you. I speak protection over this rising, over every dollar that enters your account in the next season, over every opportunity that opens, over every relationship that forms, over every decision you will face when the provision arrives and the weight of it settles into your hands for the first time. I cover you from self-sabotage. The old mechanism has been dismissed from service, but patterns take time to fully dissolve. In the moments when the old software tries to reboot, when the voice from the basement whispers that you do not deserve this, when the urge to deflect or diminish or return the blessing tries to rise, I speak protection over your mind. You are sealed. The new frequency is stronger than the old programming, and the old programming does not have the authority to override what has been activated tonight. I cover you from premature exposure. What is being built in your life right now is not ready to be seen by everyone. There are people who will celebrate your breakthrough, and there are people who will try to attach themselves to it for reasons that have nothing to do with your well-being. The discernment gate is active. Your gamma is rising, and you will see, with a clarity you have not had in years, the difference between those who are assigned to your season and those who are attracted to your provision. I cover your provision from mismanagement. The excitement of receiving after years of drought can lead to decisions made from relief rather than wisdom. I speak the overflow protocol over your life. Protect before you distribute. Build before you spend. Let the river deepen before it widens. The provision that is coming is not a lottery win meant to be consumed in a season. It is a river meant to flow for the rest of your life. And rivers that are protected at their source never run dry. I cover your family, the ones who walked through the drought with you, the ones who saw the math in the dark and carried part of the weight without being asked. Their season is shifting too, not because of their effort alone, because when the chosen one rises, the current lifts everyone in proximity. Your overflow is not just yours, it is theirs. And now, I declare, and I hear the Spirit speaking over you with a voice that does not shake, does not waver, does not negotiate. You are not who you were when this message began. You entered as a survivor. You are leaving as a carrier of provision so vast it was worth 13 years of formation to prepare you for it. A carrier of frequency so powerful it required a complete rebuild of the vessel before it could be safely poured. A carrier of identity so deep it could only be forged in a furnace of drought and silence and invisible faithfulness. You are the overflow, not the recipient of overflow, the overflow itself, the provision that moves through you to reach the lives you were assigned to touch. The river does not end at your door. Your life is the river, and when you flow, everything around you drinks. I am a cycle breaker. Financial bondage that ran for generations ends with my name. The chain is broken, the pattern is shattered, and every generation that follows me will walk in the financial freedom I fought to create. I am a builder. What I construct with this provision will outlast my lifetime. The structures I steward, the resources I allocate, the doors I open, will stand long after my voice falls silent. I build for the future, not just for today. I am positioned. The river has found me, not because I chased it, because I stood still long enough, aligned long enough, endured long enough for the current to reach me. And now that it has arrived, it will not be rerouted. I am worthy of every dollar, every blessing, every open door, every unexpected favor, every financial miracle that has my name written on it. Worthy, not because I earned it through perfection, because I was built for it through formation. I am awake, my gamma is active, my eyes are open, my frequency is rising, and the river that was always flowing but that I could not see is now visible, navigable, and mine. Do not say amen yet. I want you to sit in this frequency, right where you are. Do not move. Do not check your phone. Do not shift your attention. Stay right here, in this exact vibration. Let the weight of everything that was just spoken settle into the deepest part of you. Let it sink past your thoughts, past your emotions, into the place where identity lives, into the basement where the old voices used to speak. Let the new declarations walk down those stairs and fill every corner with a frequency that the old voices cannot survive in. You are being rewritten right now, not by effort, by reception, by allowing the truth that was spoken to find the lies that were buried and replace them, word by word, layer by layer, frequency by frequency. Stay in this. It is done. It is sealed. The war is over. The river is flowing. The wall is cracked and the water is moving through. The formation is complete. The frequency is active. The identity is declared, the provision is released, and you, chosen one, have won, and so it is. Amen. One more thing. I did not plan to say this, but I feel it pressing, and I have learned, through years of listening, not to ignore what presses. I hear the Spirit saying this over you, specifically, personally, as if you were the only person who would ever hear these words. The first sign of the overflow is closer than you think. Not months from now, not in some distant future you have to squint to see. Within days, you will encounter the first evidence. It will not be dramatic. It may not be large. It may be a conversation that leads somewhere unexpected, a phone call from a number you do not recognize, an idea that arrives during your morning recalibration with such clarity and specificity that you know, without question, it was placed there by a hand that is not yours. Do not despise the small beginning. The first drop of the river is not the river, but it is proof that the dam has broken. And once the dam breaks, the rest follows with a force you cannot stop and do not need to manage. Your only job is to stay positioned, stay in the protocol, stay in the posture, and receive. Now let me speak to you one final time, not as a teacher, not as a guide, as someone who watched you walk through something tonight that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You are not the person you were when this message began. The one who sat in the dark doing math. The one who carried the weight in silence. The one who smiled through the drought because the alternative was too heavy to show anyone. That version of you just graduated, completed the final exam, received the passing grade. And the diploma is not a piece of paper. It is the frequency now humming in your chest, the river now visible behind your eyes, the identity now settled in your bones. You are operating from a different setting now. Remember that tomorrow morning when the old frequency tries to pull you back. Remember that when the calculator app opens and the numbers look the same as they did yesterday. Remember that the numbers have not changed yet, but the frequency has. And frequency always precedes manifestation. The river moves in the unseen before it surfaces in the seen. And what is moving in the unseen tonight, on your behalf, because of what was spoken and received in this space, is larger than any number on a calculator. If this message brought clarity to what was confused, if it brought naming to what was unnamed, if it brought freedom to a wall you did not know was there, let your like be your quiet agreement, your amen without words, not for me, for the record, so that when you look back at this moment months from now, standing in a financial position you cannot currently imagine, you can point to this night and say, that is when the frequency changed. And if this message did something inside you that you want to continue, if you want more words like these for every season you will walk through from this moment forward, stay connected. There are more revelations being prepared, more frameworks, more activations, more moments like this one where the truth meets the frequency and the frequency meets the identity and everything shifts. Stay in this space so those words can find you when the time is right. For those who felt called to what I shared earlier about the 7-minute frequency recalibration, the link is still in the description and the pinned comment. I will not repeat the full explanation. You heard it. Your spirit either confirmed it or it did not. If it confirmed it, the link is there, only if you feel led. And now the last thing, the most important thing. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this message, I need you to pay attention to that, because the face that appeared in your thoughts was not random. The person your spirit pulled forward was not an accident. Someone in your life right now has been unusually quiet about their finances, not the kind of quiet that means everything is fine, The kind of quiet that means the math is bad and the silence is heavy, and they have decided it is safer to carry it alone than to burden anyone with the truth. Someone you know has been smiling through their day while counting costs in the dark, reorganizing bills at 2 in the morning, putting items back at the grocery store when they think no one is watching, declining invitations with excuses that sound reasonable but are really just the polished surface of a shame too deep to speak out loud. Someone near you, maybe closer than you think, has been doing the exact same calculation you have been doing, and they have been telling themselves the exact same lie. That provision is for other people. That survival is for them. That the river flows to everyone except the ones who pray the hardest. Share this with that person, not as a suggestion, as a mission. Text it, email it, send it however you need to, because this might be the confirmation their spirit has been praying for. This might be the message that helps them understand that their drought is not punishment, that their silence is not invisibility, that their struggle is not permanent, that the river flows for them too, and that someone, somewhere, saw them carrying the weight and sent this because chosen ones are not meant to wake up alone. Your share might be the exact moment their wall begins to crack. Chosen one, you are not leaving a message, you are leaving a season. The drought is behind you, the formation is complete, the frequency is active, the wall is cracking, the river is flowing, and the provision that has your name, your address, your exact deficit, your precise need calculated down to the penny, that provision is no longer in the distance. It is at your door. Walk differently now. See differently. Receive differently. Carry the weight of what is coming with the same quiet strength you carried the weight of what was taken. Go in peace, go in power, go in provision. The chosen one has won, and the waters